Chapter 1833. Lord Huolong's expression turned serious. Isn't it all because of the epoch-making dragon? Don't laugh at me. You were knocked unconscious by him back then, and he took advantage of you and suppressed you here, right? At the mention of the epoch-making dragon, the two of them shared a common enemy, and sparks of hatred shot out. Back then, when the epoch-making dragon stole the dragon tribe's supreme treasure book, the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll, the Dragon Emperor led the powerhouses of the dragon tribe to hunt them down. In the end, the epoch-making dragon relied on his absolute strength and killed all the powerhouses of the dragon tribe who were chasing after him. Even the Dragon Emperor fell, and the supreme divine weapon of the dragon race that he carried with him, the royal power dragon sword, also disappeared. The epoch-making dragon also disappeared without a trace. The two of them communicated with each other, not minding that someone was eavesdropping. Lord Evil Dragon glanced at Suyu coldly, and a cruel smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. Haha, why don't I tell true Lord Fire Dragon an unexpected piece of news? Apart from you and me, there is actually another person who knows about the epoch-making dragon. Lord Huolong's expression changed, and he asked coldly, Who? Yes, that insufferably arrogant silver-haired human ant. He said himself that he was once an enemy of the epoch-making dragon. Lord Evil Dragon laughed coldly. He knew Lord Huolong's temper very well. With just a few words, he could persuade him to destroy anyone or anything related to the epoch-making dragon. As expected, Lord Huolong's gaze pierced through Suyu. His murderous intent erupted with a rumble. Ant, I'll extract your soul first, and then I'll interrogate you about the epoch-making dragon. Lord Huolong said he would attack immediately. He casually shot out a blood-red beam of light. However, the direction of the beam of light was not Suyu, but Lord Evil Dragon. You. Lord Evil Dragon was furious, but he had already protected himself with evil energy. He said coldly, A dog can't change its spots. After so many years, you still can't change your bad habit of looting a burning house. True Immortal Fire Dragon chuckled. You're the same. You never trust anyone. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, ignoring Suyu and the others. He stared at Lord Evil Dragon with a faint smile. You don't think that I sensed your aura and came all the way here just to get rid of an ant for you, do you? What do you want? The Evil Dragon Great Sage was silent. True Monarch Fire Dragon's eyes shone with a profound light. Back then, you were just an insignificant little dragon. You accidentally obtained the lost holy scripture of the Dragon Clan and finally became the Evil Dragon Saint. What I want is that holy scripture. The Evil Dragon Great Sage was silent for a long time. Unexpectedly, he didn't refuse. He opened his mouth and spat out a jade disc. Fire Dragon Supreme was overjoyed. He grabbed it and glanced at it, but his face immediately sank. He crushed the jade disc and said coldly, Don't try to fool me with the Evil Dragon Divine Body. That's just the surface of the Evil Dragon Bible. It's fine if you use it to fool outsiders, but do you think you can fool me? Evil Dragon Great Sage said indifferently, Take it or leave it, I only have this. True Immortal Fire Dragon's face darkened. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Taste my true dragon divine fire. He slapped his palm on the Evil Dragon Saint's back, and a large amount of 9-colored flames erupted from his palm, instantly turning the Evil Dragon Saint into a flaming dragon. Roar! The dragon's body crackled as it burned, and the smell of burnt flesh entered everyone's noses. Evil Dragon Saint, you are currently being suppressed. You can't resist the true dragon divine fire. If you don't want to die, hand over the Evil Dragon Bible. The Evil Dragon Saint stared at him with resentment, but he gritted his teeth and didn't say anything. He understood that handing over the Evil Dragon Bible would make him die faster. If he didn't hand it over, he would still have a way to live. Let's see if you'll say anything after I destroy your body. Fire Dragon Supreme roared. The 9 colored flames in his palm suddenly erupted, and it was more than 10 times stronger than before. Purple evil energy continued to rise from the evil dragon saint's body, and the scales on his body showed faint signs of melting. The evil dragon saint grimaced in pain, but he gritted his teeth. Fire Dragon Supreme set up an array formation to keep the 9 colored flames burning. He stood at the side with his hands behind his back, watching coldly. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. 3 days passed. No one dared to leave, and no one could leave. They personally heard the evil dragon Saint Monarch's miserable howls for 3 days. At this moment, all the scales on his body had been burned by the true dragon divine fire, and a large patch of flesh was exposed. Everyone felt pity for him. The world was really unpredictable. They thought that Fire Dragon Supreme, who was from the same race, would let the evil dragon saint go and kill them all. But who would have thought that true monarch Fire Dragon's greed would cause mischief, torturing evil dragon sage to the point where he could neither live nor die. For 3 days, Fire Dragon Supreme was calm and composed. 4 days passed. 5 days passed. 6 days passed. The evil dragon saint's flesh was burned until it was pitch black, and his huge dragon body was visibly shorter. Countless pieces of flesh were burned. Under the inhumane torture, the evil dragon saint could no longer roar. Only his huge dragon eyes were shining with unyielding light. Fire Dragon Supreme couldn't sit still anymore. He said in a deep voice, "Evil dragon saint, why do you have to do this? If you hand it over, I can still let you live. Instead of suffering like this, why not hand it over?" But the evil dragon saint was waiting. In another 9 days, the ruins of Yu the Great would transport all of them out. Even if he only had 1 dragon pearl left, he could slowly recover. At his level, his will to live was so strong that he would never give up even the slightest hope. Fine, let's see how long you can endure. The 7th day, the 8th day, the 9th day passed. In another 6 days, the ruins of Yu the Great would transport everyone out by force, including Fire Dragon Supreme. Anxiety began to appear on his face. He kept urging the true dragon divine fire to continue burning. The princes, princesses, and people looked at the 9 days quietly, not daring to make a sound. They were afraid that the furious Fire Dragon Supreme would vent his anger on them. "I don't believe you will never open your mouth." Fire Dragon Supreme snorted angrily. At this moment, a silver-haired youth walked out of the crowd. "Elder, I have a way to make him open his mouth." Fire Dragon Supreme didn't even look at him. He scolded, "Get lost, you ant." He didn't want to talk to an ant, and he didn't want to give him any chance to speak. Suyu did not speak. He silently took out a 7-foot-long white thread-bound spiritual plant. The enraged Fire Dragon Supreme seemed to sense it, looking over in surprise. He was overjoyed. "Haha, 1,000-year-old dragon's beard grass. Give it to me." He waved his hand. A strong aura pushed Suyu away, forcefully snatching the dragon's beard grass. Suyu did not have the slightest bit of strength to resist. He staggered and fell to the ground, looking very pathetic. "Useless. But on account of your 1,000-year-old dragon's beard grass, I will spare your life for now." Fire Dragon Supreme laughed in disdain. The corners of the first prince's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but curse. Damn it. He really knew how to act. He had seen Suyu's trump card with his own eyes. If they really fought, Fire Dragon Supreme might not be able to do anything to him. Right now, she was acting as if she was very weak and would fall with just a push. This made the first prince grimace. He had been tricked by Suyu. But he wouldn't expose him. That Fire Dragon Supreme was obviously not easy to deal with. Once Lord Evil Dragon was dealt with, it might be their turn. If Suyu had a way to deal with him, he would be more than happy. He might even be able to reap the benefits of the fight. Fire Dragon Supreme laughed after obtaining the 1,000-year-old dragon's beard grass. "Lord Evil Dragon, you didn't expect this, did you?" Also, the 1,000-year-old dragon's beard grass is extremely attractive to the dragon clan and living creatures with dragon bloodlines. I don't believe that you can resist the power of this item after starving for countless years. The dragon's beard grass was unimaginably attractive to imperial dragons and living creatures with dragon bloodlines. Even a normal dragon emperor would be unable to resist it, much less someone like Lord Evil Dragon who had been suppressed for 1,000 years. Fire Dragon Supreme leisurely built a spectator stand. He took out a special wine that the dragon clan had brewed for a long time. He then took out some spiritual fruits that were unique to the dragon clan. Finally, he placed the dragon's beard grass neatly in the center of the table. He leaned comfortably on the chair. He drank a mouthful of wine, ate a spiritual fruit, then shook the dragon's beard grass. As expected, the eyes of the extremely determined Lord Evil Dragon started to flicker when he saw the dragon's beard grass. A desire that came from his soul was released deep within his heart. Despicable! Lord Evil Dragon finally spoke, his body trembling. Haha, so what if I am despicable? Fire Dragon Supreme took a bite of the spiritual fruit and said mockingly, "If you don't agree, I will eat the dragon's beard grass." He couldn't help but look at the dragon's beard grass. A trace of desire flashed in his eyes as if it was instinctive. Lord Evil Dragon's eyes flickered even more intensely, but he didn't say a word. He clenched his teeth and persevered. Fire Dragon Supreme waited leisurely. There are 6 more days. When your soul is in a trance, you might not be able to endure it anymore. 12 days later, Lord Evil Dragon's body was completely burned to ashes, leaving only a human-sized shadow of a dragon lying on the ground. 7 sword auras pinned him to the ground, making him unable to escape. Dragon soul. His body was destroyed, leaving only his soul. However, a dragon pearl reverberated in his soul, releasing pure dragon power to resist the flames. Under the powerful flames, Lord Evil Dragon's soul became dazed and his will was shaken. Especially under the temptation of the dragon's beard grass, it was even more shaken. But Lord Evil Dragon maintained a sliver of clarity. 3 more days. It will be over in 3 days. I must endure it. 14 days later. Tomorrow is the last day. Lord Evil Dragon's soul consciousness was on the verge of collapse. He could no longer maintain the last sliver of clarity. Give me the dragon's beard grass, and I will give you the Evil Dragon Bible. Lord Evil Dragon said in a daze. The dragon ball spewed out a cloud of purple mist, forming a spell with clear handwriting. Fire Dragon Supreme glanced at it and said in ecstasy, "Ha ha ha, it is the real Evil Dragon Bible." He immediately used a jade scroll to make a copy of the book. Then, he looked at the Evil Dragon Sage with a sinister smile and pity. Hee, Evil Dragon Sage, oh Evil Dragon Sage, even if you are an old monster that has lived for hundreds of millions of years and your will is as hard as iron, in the end, you still can't resist the double torture of dragon beard grass and torture. While laughing, he stuffed the dragon's beard grass into his mouth and swallowed it whole. After that, he walked towards Lord Evil Dragon's dazed soul with a sinister smile and said coldly, "Farewell, Lord Evil Dragon." Chapter 1834. Suyu twisted his neck and walked out of the crowd with a faint smile. True Lord Huolong, who was about to destroy the soul of the evil Dragon Lord, sensed something was wrong with the dragon beard grass. Without thinking, he immediately used his energy to shake his stomach and spit out all the food he had just eaten. However, it was too late. A piercing pain spread to his limbs and bones. Even with the toughness of the dragon race, he still felt the pain. True Lord Huolong's body trembled as he roared, "Aunt, what did you feed me?" He couldn't believe that the human, who he had subdued to the point of not daring to breathe, had dared to poison him. This was all because of his confidence and arrogance. If he had been more cautious, he probably wouldn't have swallowed this unknown dragon beard grass so easily. What he found strange was that with his realm and the unique sense of smell of the dragon race, if it was poisonous, he would have detected it immediately. Of course, it is the 1,000-year-old dragon beard grass. Su Yu smiled playfully. However, I added a little seasoning called the Luotian poison. The Luotian tears didn't poison him to death, so he kept the poison. Finally, he could put it to good use. "Aunt, I will kill you!" True Lord Huolong roared as he opened his mouth to spit out real dragon divine fire. "Even if I am poisoned, I am not someone a little ant like you can fight against." The crowd's expressions changed drastically. Only the first prince's lips curled into a smile. "Very well, finally someone was tricked like me. Ha!" It felt like he had fallen into a trap and was being laughed at. However, not long after, someone more powerful than him also fell into the trap, which was a great comfort to him. Seeing the real dragon divine fire coming towards him, Su Yu's face was calm. With a light tap of his finger, hundreds of space blades burst out from his body. Puff, puff, puff. The true dragon divine flame was instantly annihilated by the space blades, leaving not a trace behind. Moreover, a large number of space blades enveloped true Lord Huolong, who was caught off guard. Clang, clang, clang. Shockingly, Bei Wangqin was crushed into a mist of blood by the space blades. However, when they landed on true Lord Huolong's body, they created a series of sparks. Only a few space blades managed to penetrate the weak points of his body. Most of the space blades were blocked by him. Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. It was even stronger than he had imagined. Fortunately, he had seen true immortal fire dragon fight with his own eyes and knew how powerful he was, so he poisoned him a little. Otherwise, he would be even more terrifying at his peak. But in true immortal fire dragon's eyes, being injured by an ant was undoubtedly challenging his bottom line. "You're courting death!" Fire Dragon Lord roared angrily. The surface of his body spewed out divine fire that filled the sky and swept the surroundings indiscriminately. The divine flame was extremely unstable, and its direction was also abnormally chaotic. This was because he was poisoned. Even so, Su Yu still had to deal with it with all his might. He waved a large number of space blades and annihilated everything in front of him. 9 heavens of divine flame. Before the first attack stopped, true Monarch Fire Dragon immediately launched a second attack. 9 dark red fire dragons flew out of his body. This was condensed from his life divine flame, and its power was peerless. When the space blade struck the fire dragon, it only penetrated it, but it didn't weaken it in the slightest. At the same time, 9 dark red fire dragons spread out in all directions. Before they even got close, a few peak overlords nearby had already been burnt to ashes. Run! At this moment, even the first prince no longer had the intention to sit back and reap the benefits. A battle at the level of a double-crown divine warrior was too dangerous. Because true Monarch Fire Dragon used to be a double-crown divine warrior, his strength couldn't be measured at all. The fact that he had easily escaped Dongfang Xia's pursuit and sneaked into the ruins showed how extraordinary he was. Su Yu was also secretly surprised. He didn't expect true Monarch Fire Dragon to be so powerful even after being poisoned. At his peak, true Monarch Fire Dragon Lord could kill him within a few breaths. Seeing that everyone was retreating, Su Yu did not run away. With a light snort, the bracelet on his wrist shook, and a large amount of silk, invisible to the naked eye, shot out in a straight line. Poof! The 9 dark red fire dragons were penetrated by the silk and immediately became much weaker. The silk did not slow down, shooting toward true Monarch Fire Dragon. "You're really courting death." True Monarch Fire Dragon was extremely furious. He raised his hand to grab the silk. Unexpectedly, the silk was shockingly sharp. As he grabbed it, half of his palm was cut off as if it were a piece of paper. "Ah! I'll kill you!" As he strengthened the poison in his body, he activated the power of the desolation, swearing to kill Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes were calm. The silk swept in all directions, trying to destroy his body as much as possible. Protective Dragon Fire. he roared, and the surface of his body was covered with red-black flames, forming a layer of scales. The speed of the silk, which had always been successful, suddenly slowed down when it came into contact with the scales. At the same time, he roared angrily and rushed over. However, halfway through, the poison in his body showed signs of being unable to be suppressed. His whole body trembled, and the black flaming scales on the surface of his body became unstable. A few silk threads took the opportunity to pierce into his body and cut him in half. Half of his body was cut off. However, the dragon blood in his body seemed to have a mind of its own. It forcefully pulled the two halves of his body back together. The two of them were in a stalemate. The space blade and the real dragon divine fire were flying everywhere. Not many people dared to approach them. Except for a few. However, a few sneaky figures quietly approached the soul of true monarch Evil Dragon. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. The first prince, who was watching from afar, suddenly changed his expression and shouted, "Holy Lady Concord, what are you doing?" Among those sneaky people, there was the Holy Lady of the Holy Union Holy Ground. She ignored him and followed a group of people in black robes to the front of the dragon's soul. The Holy Lady Concord raised her hand and inserted a talisman into the dragon's soul. Cool energy was emitted, and the dragon's soul, which had lost its consciousness, was awakened. After it woke up, it immediately let out a soul-shaking scream. "True monarch Evil Dragon, you despicable person! Give me back the Evil Dragon Bible!" The Holy Lady Concord and the others changed their expressions slightly. She comforted him. "True monarch Evil Dragon, please calm down. We are here to save you." The first prince, who was watching from afar, was terrified. He was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. "Are you trying to get us killed? Or, who are you taking orders from?" He had never expected that the Holy Lady Concord, who was a well-known half-step martial artist, would do such a thing at the last moment. The Concord Saintess turned her head and looked at him in disdain. She giggled. "Of course, I'm obeying an existence that you can't imagine. Otherwise, you wouldn't think that I, a dignified saintess of a 2-star civilization, would willingly submit to you, right? You." The eldest prince roared in anger and charged back. Although the evil dragon Holy Monarch only had his soul left, once the 7 swords were released and he had a chance to breathe, he would be able to recover most of his cultivation. Even if he recovered to the level of a double crown emperor, it was enough to kill everyone in the ruins. No matter how strong Su Yu was, he could not possibly be strong enough to fight 2 of them alone, could he? It's too late. The joyous Union Saintess smiled coldly and said to the evil dragon Saint Monarch, "My master, I hope that after you escape, you can help us eliminate the Dongfang royal family, leaving no one alive." Now that the evil dragon Great Sage had a chance to escape, how could he refuse? Moreover, he already had plans to slaughter the descendants of the former slave. Even if they didn't ask him to do so, he would still do it. "All right." The joyous Union Saintess nodded and took the lead to fly towards the loosened ancient sword. "Let's go together and pull out the ancient sword." The black-robed men behind him all came before the ancient sword and slowly pulled it out. At this moment, the first prince, who was far away, had no time to stop them. He could only watch as they slowly pulled out the ancient sword. Despair was written all over his face. "It's over." If the evil dragon Saint Monarch escaped, the Diu Empire would be finished. Now it was too late to escape. The teachings passed down from generation to generation were finally coming true. The joyous Union Saintess lips curled into a cold smile. This barren land does not need a 3-star civilization to rule over everyone, so it's better to destroy it. There were several 2-star civilizations nearby, but who would be willing to submit to the Diu Empire? The only way was to destroy it. Coincidentally, a powerful force had contacted the joyous Union civilization and wanted to destroy the Dongfang royal family. The two sides hit it off and began a plan that had lasted for several years. The most important part was to liberate the evil dragon Saint Monarch. Along the way, the unexpected corpse clan had appeared, and Suyu, who was so powerful that it made one's scalp numb, had also appeared. But everything was fixed at this moment. It's over, the Du Empire, the Dongfang royal family. The joyous Union Saintess closed her eyes and let out a carefree sigh. However, just as the ancient sword was 2/3 out, and as long as they put in a little more effort, they would be able to pull it out completely, something strange happened. 2/3 of the ancient sword was actually attached to a hidden space blade. How could the joyous Union Saintess and the black-robed men guard against it? Creak. As the space blade spun, more than half of the bodies of everyone, including the joyous Union Saintess, were destroyed. All of them, even their souls, were destroyed. With one blow, everyone was destroyed. Suyu, who was fighting true Lord Huolong, had a cold smile on his face. The first prince, who had rushed over, was stunned for a moment. He then heaved a huge sigh of relief and shouted, "Brother, sister, hurry over and protect the sword formation. Remember, don't bring anyone over." Similarly, anyone who doesn't belong to the royal family, kill anyone who comes over. He was really scared. There was the corpse clan in front and the mysterious force behind. It was even more thrilling just now. He was covered in cold sweat. It was a close call. It was really a close call. Fortunately, the sixth prince had foreseen it and was prepared to bury a space blade in the sword. He had probably calculated that there might be remnants of the corpse clan or unknown forces plotting to release the evil dragon Saint Monarch. At that time, he would be entangled. Everything was as he had expected. Such a situation had actually occurred. At this moment, the first prince stared at his sixth prince, his emotions extremely complicated. What kind of frightening man was this? His abilities were so strong that he felt hopeless. His intelligence was so high that he could only look at him in the dust. In such a complicated environment, he could calmly set up a trap. The first prince shuddered at the thought of becoming enemies with such a being. The rest of the princes looked at Suyu with complicated gazes. On one hand, they admired him, but on the other, they were worried. With such a man with such abilities and talents, if he were to ascend the throne, would there still be a place for them? More specifically, would they still be able to live? Only Princess Rukin's eyes were shining like stars. She stared at Suyu, who was fighting the double-crowned divine Lord Huolong. She felt that his figure was the most majestic she had ever seen. With him, she did not have to worry about anything. She would live in safety for the rest of her life. On the other hand, the evil dragon Saint Monarch had once again been forcefully broken free by Suyu. He was completely trapped in an eternal suppression. He hated Suyu to the core. Little bastard. I, the evil dragon Saint Monarch, swear that one day, I will make you wish you were dead. Suyu ignored him, wholeheartedly standing with true Lord Huolong. Chapter 1835. They fought from noon all the way to night. True Lord Fire Dragon was strong. Even though he was poisoned, he was still able to fight Suyu without being at a disadvantage. But the more he suppressed the Luotian tears, the greater the impact on his body. Seeing that he was gradually at a disadvantage, and that he had no time to kill the evil dragon Lord's soul, he turned into a fire dragon and charged into the sky, roaring angrily. Human ant, I will make you regret this sooner or later. Just you wait. Humph! The silk on Suyu's wrist turned into a giant net, covering half of his body and pulling him back. Creak! Large pieces of flesh were scraped off. Among them was a dragon claw. The dragon claw was tightly holding onto a jade disc. It was the one with the evil dragon Holy Scripture. True Lord Fire Dragon was shocked and was about to turn around to snatch it back. But Suyu was one step faster, using the power of space to snatch it back. True Lord Fire Dragon was going crazy. The evil dragon Bible that he had painstakingly obtained had ended up in the hands of a human ant. But he did not dare stay any longer. The Luotian poison in his body was acting up more and more violently, and if this continued, he might really die at the hands of this human who had mastered the law of space. I will not forgive you, true Lord Fire Dragon roared, slamming his head into the seal at the end of the sky. The relic sensed something and immediately produced a teleportation force, sending true Lord Fire Dragon out. Su Yu's eyes were filled with regret. What a pity! He had wanted to keep him here, but this battle had not been in vain. Looking at the evil dragon Bible in his palm, he smiled playfully. No wonder it felt familiar. So that's why. The evil god had given him the evil dragon divine body was quite powerful. When he cultivated the divine dragon body, he could transform into a dragon to fight, increasing his fighting power to a whole new level. But his body had been taken away by the sinful woman, and the evil dragon divine body he had cultivated was all in that body. Unexpectedly, due to a freak combination of factors, he actually obtained the evil dragon Bible. The so-called evil dragon divine body was a small part of the content that evil dragon lord had compiled based on this Bible to deceive outsiders. The evil god had obtained the evil dragon divine body. The true evil dragon sacred scripture's power is limitless. Even the former four-crown emperor fire dragon true monarch coveted this scripture. If he could cultivate it successfully, his body would be strengthened to an unimaginable level. Under the evil dragon's resentful gaze, Su Yu put it away in his bosom. Shortly after, Su Yu searched the scene of the battle and found many good things. True immortal fire dragon's flesh was the blood and flesh of a true dragon. What was even more precious was that the 3 gourds of dragon blood on his waist had fallen off during the battle, which had benefited Su Yu. He opened it and saw that one of the gourds was almost empty, while the other 2 were full. The dragon blood was very pure, not any less than the dragon blood of true immortal fire dragon himself. Su Yu was slightly delighted. With 2 gourds of dragon blood, as well as true Lord Fire Dragon's dragon blood and dragon flesh, the power of the royal power dragon sword would definitely erupt after he absorbed it. In addition, cultivating the evil dragon divine body also required the physique of the dragon race. Dragon blood was also very useful for cultivating this scripture. Su Yu was very satisfied with the rewards he had gained. The prince's and princess's eyes were red. That was real dragon blood. Even if they did not need it to cultivate, it would still be very useful as a special ingredient. Who dared to compete with Su Yu for these things? Moreover, these were Su Yu's spoils of war. Who had the right to fight for them? Of course, there was one more thing that he could consider. He came in front of Lord Evil Dragon in a flash, looking him up and down. The first prince raised his eyebrows, secretly shocked. Could it be that Su Yu had set his sights on Lord Evil Dragon's soul? Haha, Lord Evil Dragon, you must hate me a lot, right? Su Yu smiled innocently. The princes' mouths twitched. They all felt sorry for Lord Evil Dragon. He had waited for hundreds of millions of years and finally had 2 chances to escape. But what had happened in the end? Just as he was about to succeed, he had been sent back to hell by Su Yu's palm. The greatest pain in the world was the feeling of falling from heaven to hell, right? Moreover, he had experienced it twice. One could only imagine the indignation and resentment he felt. Human ant, you will not live long. Lord Fire Dragon is vicious and vengeful. He will not let you off. Lord Evil Dragon laughed coldly. Su Yu shrugged. Just now, you also thought that Lord Fire Dragon would kill me when he appeared. But what happened in the end? Half a month of inhumane torture fell on your body. Nothing is set in stone. Maybe the next time we meet, I will be the one hunting him down, Su Yu said calmly. Lord Evil Dragon was silent, a sinister look in his eyes. He had thought that Lord Fire Dragon's arrival would help him escape, but what happened in the end? What are you trying to say? Lord Evil Dragon's eyes flashed. He vaguely understood what Su Yu wanted to say. Su Yu had a faint smile. I want to say that maybe one day I will return, and maybe you will follow me from then on. Dream on. Ha ha ha, this dream is not far off. He had mastered the evil dragon Bible, completely controlled the dragon sword, and commanded all the divine dragons in the world. Goodbye. Su Yu waved his hand. Right at that moment the 1-month period was up. The seals of the whole relic began to transport people out. One by one, they left one by one. Somewhere, Xiao Dai was patting her belly contentedly. There was a beast soul of an ancient ferocious beast beside her. That was one of Gu Taishu's 9 beast souls. It's a pity that he ran away fast. Otherwise, I would have eaten all the good stuff on him. All of a sudden, a spatial vortex swept over and teleported her out. Ah, no, I haven't had enough. She grabbed the ground with both hands, resisting the power of the transportation discontentedly. But she was still transported out. In another place, the north-gazing Pearl carefully plucked a strange jade-like spiritual plant. Her face was filled with excitement. After a month, I didn't come in vain. Su Yu, say goodbye. I don't want to meet you in my dreams anymore. A wave of space power swept over and transported her out. When Su Yu opened his eyes, he appeared in front of the seal. The gray-robed emperor was nowhere to be seen. He must be hunting down the injured Lord Fire Dragon. The man in the bamboo hat, the youth in the blood mist, and Bei Wangchun were all nowhere to be seen. They had left the relic earlier, and their whereabouts were unknown. A few princes and royal sisters were gathered here. There was also a large group of people. The number of people was less than half as compared to when they had first entered. The only ones who had not changed much were the purple demon armored warriors. Only a few dozen of them had fallen. The relic of the Diyu had ended. What came next was the most important moment. Who would become the next ruler of the Diyu Empire? The princes cast their gazes toward the first prince, Princess Rukan, and Su Yu simultaneously. It was common knowledge that the first prince had the most national luck, equivalent to 10 balls of imperial luck. Next were Princess Rukan and Su Yu, who had 6 balls of imperial luck. The second prince had 2 balls of imperial luck. The third prince and the fourth prince had 3 balls. The result was very obvious. The first imperial prince had won everyone's expectations and was already the future monarch. But everything had to be seen by the gray-robed emperor. Soon, the gray-robed emperor returned with a gloomy expression. It looked like he had failed to capture true Lord Fiery Dragon. Concealing his strange expression, he looked at the princes and princesses, his aged face revealing a gratified expression. Thank goodness you are all fine. When he first discovered true Lord Fiery Dragon charging out of the relic, the gray-robed emperor was uneasy. He was thinking about how many princes and princesses were still alive. Dongfang Xia had chased after the fire dragon for a long time. It was normal for him to seek revenge on the members of the royal family. Miraculously, they were all safe and sound. The princes and princesses looked at Su Yu in unison. If it wasn't for him, the gray-robed sovereign lord's words might have been something else. To think that the double-crowned fire dragon used the golden cicada shedding carapace to deceive the monarch, taking the opportunity to sneak into the relic. The gray-robed emperor comforted the crowd. But you need not worry. The monarch and the 2 imperial guardians are already on their way back. The crowd cheered, jumping for joy. Dongfang Xia was their backbone. Now that he was back, everything was stable. Only Su Yu's pupils shrank imperceptibly. He had to leave the empire immediately. There was no time to lose. He cupped his fist. Elder, it is time to compare the nation's fortunes. The gray-robed emperor nodded slightly. All right, let's start with Princess Rukan. Princess Rukan was a little nervous. Based on what she knew, the first prince would definitely win. But she did not know why. But she had an indescribable trust in Su Yu. She believed that he would give her an unexpected surprise. Hence, she calmly took out the nation's fortune that she had led the people to hunt. The gray-robed emperor meticulously appraised and calculated, finally nodding in satisfaction. The nation's fortune is 3,100. A ball of Emperor-level ancient beasts' fortune was 1,000, while a peak overlord's was 10. All of the nation's fortunes were quantified in numbers, making it easier to calculate the results. Sixth Prince, what about you? The gray-robed emperor was filled with anticipation. The second prince, the third prince, and the fourth prince did not think much of it. They had all heard him admit that there were less than 3 balls. Suyu did not answer. I want to hand mine over to Princess Rukun. The gray-robed emperor was solemn. Are you sure? He wanted Suyu to ascend to the throne the most, not Princess Rukun. Yes. Do you understand the meaning behind this? The gray-robed emperor asked again. Suyu nodded slightly. The gray-robed emperor looked at him deeply. After a long time, he sighed regretfully. All right, if you insist, I cannot stop you. If you are willing, you can transfer the nation's fortune to the other princes and princesses, but you will also lose the right to become the crown prince. The second prince calmly said, Anyway, all of you combined cannot compare to the first princes. What's the point of transferring it? That's right, sixth brother. Don't waste everyone's time. Everyone is tired after this month, and we want to train immediately, the third prince and the fourth prince said one after another. They had no hope of becoming the crown prince, so they were disheartened. Chapter 1836. The princes were stunned. Was this the pocket that contained the nation's fortune? Why was it so swollen? The second prince was stunned, but he said nonchalantly, if there was too much of the nation's fortune, it would be swollen as well. It's not surprising. He patted his own pocket, which looked a little swollen as well. Although the nation's fortune he had obtained was only equivalent to 2 lumps of imperial-level nation's fortune, the ancient beasts he had hunted were not powerful, resulting in a large number of them. That was why his pocket was swollen. Hearing his words, the other princes didn't care anymore. Only the first prince's expression sank. He was the only one who knew that the reason his pocket was swollen was not because he had too many low-level nations' fortunes. There were at least 8 imperial-level nations' fortunes in that pocket. Including Princess Rukun's, it was equivalent to 11 imperial-level nations' fortunes. As for the first prince, he only had 10 imperial-level nations' fortunes. What should he do? He had schemed for so long, and he did not want to admit defeat just like that. As these thoughts ran through his mind, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. An extremely daring idea appeared in his mind. I'll just have to give it a try. The princes looked at Suyu as he handed the pocket to the gray-robed emperor. The gray-robed emperor was a little surprised. It was rare to see a pocket swollen, and it was usually because he had captured more of the nation's fortunes. Considering that Suyu was only a peak overlord, the gray-robed emperor understood why the sixth prince was willing to give his to Princess Rukun. It was probably because he did not have much of the nation's fortune and knew that he had no hope, so he made some sort of exchange with Princess Rukun. As he thought of this, he waved his hand and poured out all of the nation's fortunes. Walala, big and small nations' fortunes, colorful, fell to the ground. The small ones were the size of a fist, while the big ones were half a zhang in size. There were only about 200 fist-sized ones, which were equivalent to 2 lumps of imperial-level ancient beast souls. There were as many as 10 lumps of the larger ones. Other than the 80 or 90 lumps that Suyu had killed, he had also snatched the second prince's nation's fortunes when he rescued Empress Ziwei. There were only about 200 lumps of the smaller ones. They were equivalent to 12 lumps of imperial-level nations' fortunes. The princes were all stunned. Even the first prince, who was already mentally prepared. Apart from those 7, he had also killed 3 emperor-level ancient beasts. Furthermore, he had also killed a shocking number of scattered ancient beasts. The second prince, the third prince, and the fourth prince were all stunned. Didn't you say there were only 3 balls of emperor-level national fate? The second prince was shocked, and he couldn't help but ask. Su Yu replied calmly, "Do you believe everything I say?" The second prince was speechless. If it were him, he would also hide it. However, there were simply too many of them, so many that he couldn't even imagine it. The gray-robed old man's eyes shone brightly. He waved his sleeves and immediately swept up all of the nation's fate, pressing it into a cauldron. Not long after, a string of numbers appeared in the furnace. "The total national luck is 12,300, the gray-robed emperor announced. He really didn't expect that Su Yu alone could obtain so much of the nation's destiny and break the previous best record. "This is too shocking." The gray-robed emperor couldn't contain his excitement. He had not misjudged Su Yu. Someone who could cultivate one of the 8 great laws was definitely not a simple person. At the same time, he was even more confused. Why did Su Yu have to give all of the nation's destiny to Princess Rukin when he could have ascended the throne himself? "Sixth Prince, let me ask you one last time. Do you really want to voluntarily give the nation's destiny to Princess Rukin?" He secretly signaled Su Yu with his eyes, telling him not to do so. "Yes." But Su Yu didn't seem to hear him, agreeing without hesitation. The gray-robed emperor sighed silently. Without another word, he gathered Princess Rukin's 3 fragmented pieces of the nation's destiny and pressed them into the same cauldron. The total value displayed was 15,400. Princess Rukin cried tears of joy. The outcome had been decided. No matter how powerful the first prince was, could he surpass this value? Impossible. Her dream was finally about to be fulfilled. She wanted to ascend the throne as the empress. She wanted to gather the strength of the entire nation to annihilate the eldest princess of the Diu Empire, Dongfang Xunlei, and her followers. She wanted to avenge her mother and uncle. Her dream of many years was about to be fulfilled. She looked deeply at Su Yu, her heart filled with indescribable gratitude. She thanked fate for allowing her to meet someone like Su Yu. He was extremely powerful, and he kept his promise. He could have become the emperor of the Diu Empire himself, but he still kept his promise. At this moment, Princess Rukin wouldn't reject any request from Su Yu. She was willing to repay him with everything she had. Emperor Wuhan, who was watching from afar, also shed tears of excitement. Finally, she had finally come this far. She looked deeply at Su Yu, silently thanking him countless times in her heart. The gray-robed emperor looked dispirited. "Next, the 5th prince," he said indifferently. The 5th prince stepped forward and took out a slightly bulging bag. It was filled with fragmented pieces of the nation's destiny. 3,200, the gray-robed emperor announced expressionlessly. "I'll pass it to my eldest brother." "Sure." The gray-robed emperor didn't even try to persuade him to stay, agreeing immediately. Next, the 4th prince also took out a bag of similar size. He didn't seem to care. After all, it wouldn't be his turn. At this moment, his ears twitched, as if someone was sending him a telepathic message. He looked conflicted, then his expression changed as he looked at Su Yu in surprise. "Hurry up." The gray-robed emperor was impatient. The 4th prince came back to his senses, clenching his teeth. "I'll pass it to my eldest brother as well." Everyone's expressions changed. They weren't surprised that the 5th prince would pass it to the 1st prince. The 5th prince had always followed the 1st prince's lead. But what was up with the 4th prince? The relationship between the two of them was shallow. The gray-robed emperor's eyes flashed. "Are you sure?" "Yes. I'll pass it all to my eldest brother," the 4th prince said with certainty. This time, Princess Rukin and Emperor Wu Hen's expressions changed. What had happened? Why would the 4th prince make such a decision? The gray-robed emperor looked at him deeply, nodded, and left his nation's destiny aside. 3,100. Next, the 3rd prince. Unexpectedly, as soon as the 3rd prince came up, he immediately said, "I'll transfer all of mine to eldest brother." Everyone's expressions changed completely. The members of the imperial family began discussing secretly. At first, they had thought that the first prince would surely take first place. Then, they thought it would be Suyu. Now, the situation had taken a strange turn. The gray-robed emperor's expression turned solemn. He had also sensed that something was amiss. Sure. He also left his nation's destiny aside. 3000, second prince. The second prince walked forward hesitantly, his eyes still filled with hesitation. His gaze flickered between Suyu and the first prince. Finally, he clenched his teeth. I'll pass it all to the first prince. Everyone's pupils shrank. All the princes had sided with the first prince. 2000. First prince, come forward. The gray-robed emperor commanded. The first prince walked forward calmly, a victorious smile on his lips. Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhan's hearts clenched. The second prince, the third prince, the fourth prince, and the fifth prince combined already had more than 11,000 destiny. The first prince only needed to take out 5 more balls of emperor-level ancient beasts' destiny to turn the tables. At this moment, everyone's hearts clenched. Only a small number of people who knew the inside story had different expressions. The 4 princes knew the first prince. There were more than 5 emperor-level destinies on him. There were a total of 7. For example, Princess Rukin had 2 more. Those 2 were the absolute disparity between them. The gray-robed emperor opened his pocket nervously. Everyone's gaze was focused on it. The fateful moment had arrived. He poured out all the nation's destiny and pressed it into the cauldron. A string of clear numbers appeared. 7,100. He sighed in his heart. Sigh, he was 1 step behind. What a pity, what a pity! The 6th prince was a genius who had single-handedly obtained 12 balls of the nation's destiny. He had created a grand event in the history of the empire. Unfortunately, he was no match for the collusion of the princes. Although he had lost, he was still proud. Many years later, the history of the empire would record the stunning stroke of the 6th prince of a certain dynasty. The gray-robed emperor secretly felt that it was a pity. With a wave of his big sleeves, the few princes' destiny stacked up to 17,400. Finally, 2 cauldrons were placed in front of the gray-robed emperor. One of them was Princess Rukin, 15,400. The other was the first prince, 17,400. The latter was 20,000 more. Emperor Wuhan's expression was gloomy, extremely bitter. No one had expected it to turn into a situation where all the princes had joined forces to deal with the 6th prince and Princess Rukin. The unfair comparison had caused them to lose their last hope. Princess Rukin's expression was pale, her eyes slightly dazed. She had worked so hard, but in the end she had been defeated in such a manner. She was indignant, but so what? A defeat was a defeat. But she was not discouraged. Instead, she turned to console Suyu, forcing a smile. You have already done your best. I am very grateful. You are not responsible for this defeat. With all the princes joining forces, no one else could have won. Suyu sighed, rubbing her head. He could not help but feel sorry for the princess. With the first prince in power, the other princes might have been able to escape. Only she, the princess who had exposed her ambition and almost threatened his position, could not be allowed to live. In this life, she would not be able to avenge her mother and uncle. She would most likely have to live a destitute life. The gray-robed emperor looked at the 2 cauldrons, saying indifferently, "If there are no objections to the examination process, then I will seal the fate of the 2 cauldrons and hand them over to the monarch when he returns." Dongfang Xia had to personally oversee the conferment of the crown prince. The gray-robed emperor could not make the decision. The first prince smiled and nodded. He looked at Suyu, laughing in his heart. So what if you have shocking abilities? The future crown prince would still be him. What about you? The gray-robed emperor looked at Suyu. Suyu was about to nod when he suddenly sensed something. His brows creased, and his expression changed slightly. I have an objection. His words once again stirred the hearts of the crowd. Could it be that the sixth prince still had the empire's fate? The gray-robed emperor looked curious. You still have the empire's fate? No, I have already taken it out, Suyu said truthfully. The first prince's wildly beating heart gradually calmed down. Suyu's words had given him a shock. The other princes also heaved a sigh of relief. Suyu's unfathomable abilities had scared them. They were afraid that Suyu had some sort of backup plan. Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhan's faces, which had just lit up, quickly dimmed. The gray-robed emperor calmly said, "Since you do not have it, then." Chapter 1837. Somewhere in the sky, in a chaotic space, a petite girl in a colorful robe was forcibly transported out by Suyu using the law of space. What's going on with this lousy relic? Why did it trap me inside and not let me out? It forced me to bite through the seal and run back through the void. Xiao Dai muttered, chewing on a fragment of the seal. Everyone was stunned. What did she say? Many people could not believe their ears. She said that she was forced to stay in the relic. Then she bit through the seal and escaped. Everyone was confused, not understanding who the mysterious girl was or where she had come from. The gray-robed emperor's expression changed slightly, turning to look at the seal behind him. The seal was flickering, showing signs of damage. Fortunately, the area of damage was not large, and it quickly repaired itself. His face was filled with shock. Eating a seal? This was unheard of. Who are you? The gray-robed emperor bellowed. Xiao Dai glared at him. Old man, what are you yelling about? I'll eat you if you yell again. The gray-robed emperor was so angry that his beard was puffed and his eyes were wide open. The aura of a double-crowned emperor was released. Elder, please wait. She is my spiritual pet. Suyu reached out and placed his hand on Xiao Dai's shoulder, stopping her from exploding. Spiritual pet. The gray-robed emperor was stunned. The girl in front of him was clearly a human. How could she be a spiritual pet? Well, it was not uncommon to subdue beauties from various races as spiritual pets. It was understandable that the sixth prince had such a taste. The gray-robed emperor suppressed his anger. You said that this spiritual pet has the fortune of the nation? Nodding, Suyu said, using one's own spiritual pet to help seize the fortune of the nation is not against the rules, is it? The gray-robed emperor shook his head. Spiritual pets are also a part of one's own abilities. Naturally, it is not against the rules. If the 5 princes were allowed to join forces to suppress one prince and princess, what was the help of a mere spiritual pet? Even the first prince merely furrowed his brows, not daring to say that it was against the rules. However, after carefully observing Xiao Dai's aura, he was not very worried. This spiritual pet did not have the aura of an emperor. Or rather, it did not even have the aura of a peak overlord. What kind of ancient beast could such a spiritual pet kill? Could it be a deity-level beast? He laughed contemptuously. The second prince and the other princes also smiled faintly after being stunned for a moment. Sixth brother has actually placed his hopes on such a spiritual pet. It seems that he really doesn't have any backup plans. The princes exchanged glances and secretly laughed. Suyu didn't know Xiao Dai's exact strength. She hadn't fought since she woke up. How many ancient beasts did you kill? Suyu stroked her head as he asked. Yes, it must be an emperor-level ancient beast or higher. Xiao Dai stretched out her index finger. 1. Suyu sighed inwardly. Although it was unexpected that she could kill emperor-level ancient beasts, it was still not enough. The eldest imperial prince and the others heaved a sigh of relief. What a close call. This unassuming young girl was actually able to kill an emperor-level ancient beast. The gray-robed sovereign said, "Take it out." Xiao Dai glared at him and angrily slapped a shriveled bag on the table. "Humph, see for yourself." The gray-robed sovereign's face was indifferent as he opened the bag and poured out the nation's fate. But when he shook it, nothing came out. What's going on? The gray-robed sovereign muttered to himself. He could clearly feel the nation's fate inside, but he couldn't pour it out. This was the first time he had encountered something like this. Break! He pointed at the bag with one hand. But with a soft rumble, the bag exploded. The nation's fate grew from small to large, like a rapidly expanding balloon. In the blink of an eye, it had grown from the size of a fist to a size of 500 feet. The gray-robed sovereign was caught off guard and was pushed back by the nation's fate, crashing into the seal. Ah! What is this thing? It's huge. The princes were also forced back. They couldn't see the whole thing from a close distance. But the people watching from afar were petrified, staring at the massive nation's fate without blinking. They were all dumbfounded. The eldest imperial prince was stunned. He stepped back to look at the giant object and was also petrified. The other princes did the same, all of them looking as if they had seen a ghost. In the instant that the nation's fate expanded, Su Yu pulled Princess Rukun back. Looking at the massive object, he was slightly taken aback. He then smiled. "You're lucky to have picked up a bargain." Xiao Dai raised her neck. "Come on. Took me a lot of effort to eat that crow. But it tasted pretty good, just not as good as those ferocious spirits." The speaker was unintentional, but the listener was interested. The princes shuddered, looking at Xiao Dai in shock. Crow. Could it be the ancient beast with the double crown that Su Yu and Bei Wangchun had injured in the ruins of Yu the Great, the evil crow? When Su Yu and true Lord Fire Dragon were fighting, the evil crow had long since escaped. No one knew where it had gone. Unexpectedly, that meant that the incredibly massive nation's fate before them was a nation's fate at the level of a double crown ancient beast. The gray-robed sovereign was shocked, his scalp tingling as he stared at Su Yu's spiritual pet. That evil crow had been eaten by her? He finally believed that this spiritual pet had come out after eating the seal in the ruins of Yu the Great. Calming himself down, he spent a lot of effort to force the massive nation's fate into the cauldron. 100,000! The gray-robed sovereign could not help but feel excited. This was the nation's fate of a double crown ancient beast, 100 times that of a single crown ancient beast. "I will still gift it to my sister," Su Yu said calmly, his tone firm and without the slightest bit of hesitation. The gray-robed sovereign sighed again, then inserted the 15,400 pieces of the nation's fate into the cauldron. He looked at the princes and princesses again. Any objections? The faces of the first prince and the others were ashen, unable to recover from their shock. So what if there were objections? Could they conjure up 100,000 pieces of the nation's fate? Since there are no objections, seal the cauldron and wait for His Majesty to personally announce the results of the succession. Now, the fight for the nation's fate at the ruins of Yu the Great is officially over. The gray-robed sovereign waved his hand and kept the two cauldrons. With this announcement, the fight for the nation's fate that affected the entire empire finally came to an end. Princess Rukun's mansion was filled with joy. Various members of the royal family came to congratulate her. In the past, Princess Rukun was not taken seriously by any member of the royal family. They were more interested in befriending the first prince. But now, she was the future empress of the Du Empire. Princess Rukun was exhausted dealing with the situation. Even Emperor Wuhan was busy. Su Yu stood in the air above the sixth prince's mansion, looking at the bustling princess's mansion. He smiled. "Let's go. Aren't you going to say goodbye to her?" Xiao Dai lay on the roof, her left hand holding the dragon's flesh and her right hand holding the dragon's blood. This was Su Yu's reward for her. "There's no need. I've kept my promise. Let's go," Su Yu said calmly. Dongfang Xia was about to return. He could not stay in the Du Empire any longer. With the identity of the sixth prince, Su Yu could easily leave the palace. Soon, he used the transportation portal and arrived at the border of the empire, the Beiwang Fief. He arrived at the border's entrance with ease and prepared to leave on a meteor. Unexpectedly, the border's entrance was sealed. A large number of imperial guards guarded the entrance, not allowing anyone to enter or leave. Su Yu was shocked. The border of the Dew Empire was sealed? He stopped a nearby peak overlord and asked, "May I ask when the border was sealed?" The other party saw that Su Yu was of the same level and gave him face. "Brother, you are not from the Beiwang fief, are you?" "I am from the Imperial City." Su Yu had a bad feeling about this. "Oh, that explains it," the other party said. "A month ago, all the Empire's entrances and exits were sealed. Not just the Beiwang fief, but the entrances and exits of the border fiefs were also sealed. You are in the Empire, so you do not know about this." Su Yu's pupils dilated. A month ago, wasn't that when the Dew Empire's ruins had begun? Something was wrong. Dongfang Xia was out hunting the Double Crown Emperor's fire dragon. He had not returned. Who had the right to order the entire Dew Empire to be sealed? Su Yu had never expected that the borders of the Dew Empire would actually be sealed. Looking at the Imperial Guard's stance, it would be impossible for them to leave by bribing like they did the last time. Su Yu arrived at the Snow Lion fief and entered the black market with ease. Unlike the past, the black market was filled with an indescribable pressure. He could often see mysterious people with hesitant expressions or walking quickly, as if something big had happened. It looked like something big had happened in the Dew Empire. He came to the information shop in the black market. The originally deserted place had now become the busiest area of the black market. People were squeezing in, lining up from the hall to the street. As expected, Su Yu's heart sank again. He was pondering whether he could enter the information shop as soon as possible when a charming voice suddenly sounded behind him. "Sixth Prince, why do you have the time to come to our black market? Are you here to raid our black market?" Su Yu looked back and recognized her. He hesitated for a moment, then cupped his fist. "So it's Maya Chengshan's Huan Mei, head shopkeeper." Huan Mei looked Su Yu up and down with a faint smile. She teased, I wouldn't dare. After all, I am someone from the black market. The sixth prince is now a member of the royal family of the Dew Empire." Su Yu frowned slightly. "Just say what you want, no need to beat around the bush. If he really wanted to destroy the black market, he would have done so long ago. How could Huan Mei not know this?" It's so easy talking to the sixth prince," Huan Mei said with a smile. "I have a deal with the sixth prince. He only wanted to leave the Dew Empire as soon as possible. He had no interest in making a deal." "Say it." He was patient. "Sixth prince, help us with something. We will help you leave the Dew Empire." Su Yu's pupils shrank. "You must be joking. Why would I want to leave the Dew Empire?" Huan Mei covered her mouth as she laughed. "Now, those who come to the black market to look for information have only one goal: to sneak out of the Dew Empire." Su Yu's expression changed. He stared at her for a moment. "Then why must I help you with something? No matter how I look at it, paying the information shop is safer." Huan Mei let out a strange laugh, lowering her voice. Sixth prince, what kind of sneak-out method can accommodate so many people without being detected?" Chapter 1838. Su Yu's expression changed slightly as he looked at the sea of people queuing up. The method of smuggling did exist, but to smuggle so many people at the same time. To be precise, there should be more. The borders of the Dew Empire had been sealed for more than a month, and there were so many people queuing up every day. The number of people in a month was astronomical. Anyone with a little bit of rationality could sense that something was wrong. With such a large number of smugglers, unless the imperial family personally opened the back door, no one had the ability to smuggle them all out. It was very likely that the intelligence company would take the opportunity to make a fortune. After all, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was still a black market in the Dew Empire. Coupled with the impending chaos of the Dew Empire, it was not impossible for a situation to occur. Unreliable. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu made a decision. The power of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce is overwhelming. Even though the Dew Empire is suppressing you, you can secretly distribute the black market to all the fief. I don't know what you need my help with. Su Yu's eyes flashed. Huan Mei giggled. No matter how powerful we are not powerful enough to bribe the imperial family. Su Yu's eyes flashed. You want me to use the power of a prince? He was just the most ordinary sixth prince, and he did not control any imperial power. He could not think of anything worth befriending the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. It's so easy to talk to the sixth prince. We hope that the sixth prince can use your identity to take us to a place. After thinking for a moment, his pupils shrank. You want me to take you to the Imperial Palace? There was no place the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce could not go except the Imperial Palace. That's right. Huan Mei giggled. Does the Imperial Palace have anything to do with leaving the Dew Empire? Huan Mei nodded. Of course it does. The Empire's borders are all sealed. There is only one way to leave this place, the Intercivilization Transportation Formation. What's that? It was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Enchantress said, to put it simply, it can allow a person to cross from one civilization to another. All it takes is a star stone and a civilization map. Star stone, civilization map? Aren't you afraid that I will leave alone if you tell me in such detail? Since the Intercivilization Teleportation Formation is in the palace, it shouldn't be too difficult to search for it. Why do you have to look for it? The Intercivilization Teleportation Formation is in the withered earth vein under the palace. I can even give you the map. She took out a fragrant map from her bosom. The map clearly depicted the withered ground veins beneath the palace. It was exactly the same as the map in Fantasy Moon Longjuan's memory. It was a real map. The Intercivilization Teleportation Formation was clearly marked on the map. Su Yu frowned slightly and asked in a serious voice, Are star stones and civilization maps rare? Phantom giggled and said, What do you think? Every civilization only has one star stone and civilization map at the beginning of its birth. Coincidentally, our Miaoqing heaven collected all the treasures in the world, and among them, we accidentally found a star stone and civilization map. It was left behind by a 3-star civilization after its collapse. Unless you can find the missing star stone and civilization map of the Dew Empire, I'm afraid it'll be useless even if the sixth prince knows where the ancient formation is. The star stones and the civilization map of the Dew Empire? Why were they missing? But that was no longer important. It was impossible to find them in a short time. In the entire Dew Empire, only Miaoqing Heaven had the star stones and civilization map. How many people are there? Su Yu asked. 100. It wasn't a small number, but it wasn't a large number either. It wouldn't be a problem to bring them into the Empire. You must have earned a lot of money from it, right? He didn't believe that the 100 people were all from Miaoqing Heaven. It's a trade secret, Huan Mei smiled proudly. Su Yu didn't bother to ask further. As long as I'm one of the 100 people, I can bring you in. Otherwise, with his strength, he wasn't worried about being cheated. Don't worry, we are businessmen. We only seek wealth. There's no need to take unnecessary risks just for a place. That's for the best. When do we leave? Now. So urgent? It seemed like the situation in the Dew Empire was very serious. Let's go then. Huan Mei packed up all the treasures Miaoqing Heaven had obtained in the past 5 years, then brought the 9 shopkeepers back to the imperial city with Su Yu. They disguised themselves as Su Yu's attendants and entered the imperial city together. With Su Yu's current prestige in the imperial family, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to bring 100 people into the palace. At the edge of the palace, at a junction with a seal, Huan Mei accurately found a passageway that led underground. It seemed to have been opened by someone and had been prepared for a long time. The abandoned veins of the earth were clearly visible. Su Yu pondered. May I ask you a question? Do you know why the Dew Empire sealed off the borders? Huan Mei shook her head with a bitter smile. I thought that as a prince you would know some information. We don't know the specific reason, but we do know that it was very sudden. All the entrances and exits of the borders were sealed off at the same time. Such a big move must have been arranged by Dongfang Xia. He must be targeting someone. For safety's sake, I'd better leave as soon as possible. Under Huan Mei's lead, they easily passed through the maze-like withered earth veins. After a long time, they reached an unknown depth underground. Suddenly, they heard a lot of people talking. Su Yu's heart moved. He quietly took out the blindfold leaf and changed his appearance. Because of those discussions, he actually heard quite a few familiar voices, as well as some familiar words. Using the ancient Fuyao formation this time is our only hope of escaping. Yes, fortunately, the ancient Fuyao formation of the Diu Empire has been preserved and not destroyed. Otherwise, we would have to put in a lot of effort to escape from the Diu Empire. I really don't know what Dongfang Xia is thinking. There is clearly an extremely threatening fire dragon that is wreaking havoc in the entire territory. Instead of trying to capture it, he suddenly sealed off the entire territory of the Diu Empire. What is he trying to do? It doesn't matter. We have to leave the Diu Empire no matter the price. I'm getting more and more uneasy. Suddenly, they also noticed the arrival of Huan Mei and the others. They all fell silent and became very vigilant. When they saw that it was Huan Mei, they all heaved a sigh of relief and greeted her with a smile. Huan Mei Palm, you're finally here. We thought that manager Huan Mei wouldn't come. Huan Mei smiled insincerely. I'm not as resourceful as all of you, who can easily sneak into the palace. If I hadn't met a capable person, I don't know how long it would have taken for me to come in. She looked at Su Yu, who was disguised, but did not point it out. The crowd casually glanced at Su Yu and did not care. Instead, Su Yu sized them up. He did not expect nearly 100 people to be able to hide under the palace without anyone noticing. How did they get in? Even someone of Huan Mei's level needed a prince to lead the way. How did these people do it? Su Yu could not help but smile as he glanced at them. There were so many familiar faces, so many that it was unbelievable. The pair king of the Beixin fief, the injured Bei Wangchen, Bei Wangting, Bei Wangzhu, and a middle-aged heaven and earth divine warrior of the Beixin clan, whom he had never seen before. He should be the current master of the Beixin family. They stayed in a corner, not saying a word. The entire Beixin family was preparing to escape from their fief. It seemed like they were worried that the news of the loss of the Beixin king Cauldron would be leaked, and were preparing to flee. However, the sudden change in the Diu Empire had caused all the border entrances and exits to be sealed overnight. They could only escape through the inter-civilization transportation portal. Looking at the rest of the people, there were still many familiar faces. The Corpse Emperor, Lan Yu, and the Emperor Corpse, the group of Corpse clan members led by them. They were preparing to release the evil dragon lord in the ruins of the Diu Empire, allowing him to destroy the members of the royal family and Dongfang Xia, so that the Corpse clan could invade the entire Diu Empire. However, Su Yu had stumbled upon them. Man proposes, God disposes. Corpse Emperor, let's take our time. There is no need to be shaken by a momentary loss. What made Su Yu even more impressed was the white-clothed woman standing beside the Corpse Emperor. She was no stranger to Su Yu. The eldest princess of the Diu Empire, Dongfang Shunlei. Last time, she had failed to assassinate Su Yu with Luo Shunlei, so she had escaped and disappeared. She was here too. Su Yu's surprise was unimaginable. As expected, the group of people standing behind her were all notorious criminals on the wanted list. They were all enemies of Su Yu's Diu Empire. Haha, they are all here. Su Yu was secretly amused, but he had a bad feeling about this. Was this a coincidence? The people present were either the old enemies of the Diu Empire, the Corpse clan who threatened the Diu Empire, or the traitors who wanted to betray the Diu Empire. It was really a coincidence that they were all gathered here. Little brother, You look very unfamiliar. A middle-aged man who had always been alone walked out from among them. He had broad shoulders and a long scar on his forehead, but he did not have the temperament of a middle-aged man. Instead, he had a heroic air. Huan Mei said, "Scarface Xiong, he is from my Chengxian. It is normal that you have not seen him before." The middle-aged man called Scarface Xiong was also famous in the Du Empire. He was ranked 9th on the wanted list of criminals. In the past, he had repeatedly killed billions of living creatures at the borders of the empire, cultivating some kind of bloodthirsty divine technique. This person was listed as the 9th most dangerous criminal by the Du Empire, and had been wanted for many years. This time, the entire Du Empire was sealed. He felt that something was wrong and was prepared to escape. "Oh? Is that so? I am a frequent visitor of Maya Chengxian. Why have I not seen him before?" Scarface Xiong stared at Su Yu, his eyes filled with suspicion. Huan Mei laughed angrily. "Aren't you being too paranoid? Breaking into the palace to activate the ancient Fuyao formation is a capital offense. Would I bring unreliable people to threaten my own safety?" Hearing this, Scarface Xiong nodded slightly. That was true. Of all the suspicious people, only Huan Mei was not. "All right, I apologize to little brother," Scarface Xiong said. "Now, is it time to activate the ancient Fuyao formation? Staying here any longer makes me feel uneasy." Scarface Xiong shrunk his neck. Although the others did not rush him, their eyes were filled with anxiety. "All right, there is no time to lose. Let's set off now." Huan Mei nodded. She arrived in front of a seemingly ordinary, withered wall and lightly struck it with her palm. At once, the entire wall shook violently, shattering a large amount of dust and gravel. Pieces of strange patterns appeared on the wall. A strange bright light flowed within the patterns, emitting a powerful energy that could resist the void. Chapter 1839. This is the ancient Fuyao formation? Su Yu stared at it, his eyes flickering. He found it familiar. Then, Huan Mei carefully took out a black stone the size of a fist and a silver scroll. On the scroll were specks of light that looked like stars scattered everywhere, and there were lines connecting them. Seeing these two items, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. "It's that thing." His heart shook, but his expression did not change. His eyes quickly regained their calm. Huan Mei pasted the silver scroll on the wall. The lines immediately swirled, forming a vortex the size of a fist. It was the size of the black stone. She shouted, "Everyone, get within 100 feet of the ancient formation." Everyone approached. Su Yu stood on the ancient Fuyao formation without batting an eyelid. Seeing that everyone was ready, Huan Mei pressed the star stone into the vortex. At once, the entire pattern released an intense light. Among the 100,000 earth veins, those that had not yet withered were rapidly drained of earth energy, rapidly withering. When Su Yu saw this, he suddenly understood. It was no wonder that there were so many intersecting withered earth veins beneath the royal family. Every time the ancient Fuyao formation was used, it needed to absorb a massive amount of earth energy to activate. It must have been used several times to cause the withered earth veins to appear everywhere. But no matter what, they could finally leave. The pattern grew brighter and brighter, illuminating the entire world of withered earth veins. The powerful white light even penetrated the ground, reaching the sky above the royal family. Princess Rukin and the princes were all alarmed. The gray-robed emperor seemed to recall something after a moment of shock. His expression changed, and he let out a furious roar from deep within the palace. "Who dares to touch the ancient Fuyao formation?" He shattered the ground beneath his feet with a punch, revealing the withered earth veins. He desperately rushed in the direction of the ancient Fuyao formation. But the ancient Fuyao formation had already been activated. He could not stop it if he rushed over now. Huan Mei clutched the star stone tightly, her lips curling into a smile. "Everyone, we will meet again if fate permits it. Ancient formation, activate. With a loud roar, everyone was enveloped by the white light and sent into the transportation. 1 breath passed, 2 breaths passed, 3 breaths passed, 10 breaths passed, but the white light was still in its original spot, with no intention of starting the transportation. What's going on? Why hasn't the transportation started? Strange. Manager Phantom, what are you doing? At this moment, the blinding white light began to dim, and the ancient Fuyao formation gradually stopped operating. A scene that caused everyone's expression to change drastically appeared in front of them. One of the phantoms was pointed at the wall by a finger. One should know that they had started to set up the ancient Fuyao formation a month ago. If he had sneaked in at that time, didn't it mean that someone else was chasing after the double-crowned fire dragon? Hee, royal sister, long time no see. I missed you very much. Dongfang Xia clasped his hands behind his back and smiled. The one who screamed was naturally the Empire's royal princess, Dongfang Xia's elder sister, Dongfang Shenlei. Her face was livid and she said, "This was all your plan, wasn't it? Chasing after the double-crowned fire dragon was just your plan to lure the snake out of its hole." Dongfang Xia said calmly, You could say that. After all, royal sister is very elusive. You would not easily show up unless there was a special opportunity. Coincidentally, a fire dragon appeared, so I thought that if I left the Empire, royal sister would definitely show up and cause trouble. So, after you lured me out, you immediately sealed off all the borders of the Empire. In fact, it was just a bluff to scare us away? Dongfang Shenlei said with hatred. From the beginning to the end, it was all Dongfang Xia's plot. Sealing off the borders was to make them have no choice but to use the ancient Fuyao formation to escape and capture her and all her henchmen. For this reason, Dongfang Xia did not hesitate to disguise himself as Dao Scarface Xiong and sneak into their midst. He had been waiting patiently until now. As you said, I originally only wanted to get rid of royal sister and her henchmen once and for all. Unexpectedly, it seemed that there was something interesting that had jumped into the trap. Dongfang Xia clasped his hands behind his back and smiled. Bei Xian's bloodline has betrayed me. What a surprise! The pair king, the current family master Bei Wangchen, Bei Wangzhu, and Bei Wangting knelt down together. The pair king and the current family master looked bitter. Greetings, your majesty. Dongfang Xia glanced at them indifferently. Then, his eyes fell on the emperor corpse, the corpse emperor, and the rest of the people. His eyes were slightly cold. How dare a few corpse clan covet a 3-star civilization? You overestimate yourself. Then, he looked at Suyu with sharp eyes. The one who surprised me the most is you. He raised his head and sighed. My son, why did you betray me too? Or are you not my son at all? With a wave of his sleeve, the blinding leaf in Su Yu's hand disappeared and fell into Dongfang Xia's hand. Su Yu's real face was revealed. Su Yu! Su Yu! Su Yu! Exclamations of surprise resounded in the crowd at the same time. The bloodline of Bei Xian, Dongfang Shenlei, and the corpse clan were all shocked. This time Dongfang Xia was surprised. My son, you have quite a wide network. A group of people from all walks of life knows you. Now that things had come to this, Su Yu could only tell the truth. I am not your son. Unexpectedly, Dongfang Xia flicked his sleeve and laughed. I knew it a long time ago. What? Su Yu was stunned. Dongfang Xia's face darkened slightly. How could I not know? My 6th son died many years ago. The land belongs to the king. Even if it is a fief, it is still my country. How could you hide it from me? When you appeared, I knew you were a fake. Su Yu was confused. Then why? Of course I wanted to see who was behind you. It turned out that he had mistaken Su Yu for a threat to the Empire. He had deliberately cast a long line to catch a big fish, hoping to lure out the person behind him. Unfortunately, the truth was not what he had imagined. What surprised me was that you dared to collude with Princess Rukan and Emperor Wuhan to deceive me just for Daoyu. I am also surprised by your courage. Dongfang Xia laughed. Su Yu was silent. He had underestimated the power of the Three-Crown Emperor and the control a monarch had over the empire. Everything about him was in Dongfang Xia's eyes. Since I have been caught by you, I am at your disposal. Su Yu simply spread out his hands. Unless he died together with the Three-Crown Emperor, he would not be able to resist. Unexpectedly, Dongfang Xia smiled mysteriously. Of course I will punish you, and I will punish you well. But not now. You stand aside. Su Yu stood to one side, quietly observing the situation. The descendants of Beixin stand aside. The descendants of Beixin stood aside nervously. Now, only the Corpse Clan and Dongfang Divine Lei's forces were left, as well as some scattered criminals. As for you, Dai, Dongfang Xia said calmly. As soon as the word Dai fell, the crowd immediately exploded into a mist of blood. Nearly 100 people were killed in an instant. Only the Emperor Corpse, the Corpse Emperor, Lan Yu, and Dongfang Divine Lei survived. The rest were all dead. However, all of them were seriously injured. Dongfang Divine Lei's body was festering, and she was only one step away from death. Dongfang Xia, you will die a horrible death. Dongfang Divine Lei, who was in despair, attacked Dongfang Xia. Dongfang Xia snorted coldly. He could crush her like an ant. In the past, this ant had been hiding, and he could not do anything about it. Now, he could crush her with a finger. However, Dongfang Divine Lei's attack suddenly changed direction and turned into a grab. Su Yu. Surrender. Su Yu was the only person that Dongfang Xia had his eyes on, so he was the most suitable hostage. Chapter 1840. Dongfang Xia put his hands behind his back and didn't try to stop her. Instead, he smiled meaningfully. As Su Yu saw this, he knew very well that his true abilities were most likely being grasped by him. Sighing, Su Yu took out the Tianyi Bao and shot an arrow at Dongfang Xia. Chi. The black light pierced through the sky and nailed Dongfang Shunlei to the ground. Dongfang Shunlei's body and divine soul, which were riddled with holes, were destroyed on the spot. One arrow for one emperor. Seeing this, the emperor's corpse, the Corpse Emperor, and Lan Yu had complicated expressions on their faces. Dongfang Shunlei, who used to be a nonentity, had now become an existence comparable to an emperor. How is this possible? Dongfang Shunlei screamed in disbelief as her soul was destroyed. Only one person said, "It is impossible for her to be captured by you." Bei Wangchen stared at Su Yu with a complicated expression. He thought he would never see this man again. Unexpectedly, he met him again. Haha, not bad. Dongfang Xia smiled faintly and turned to look at the Emperor's corpse, the Corpse Emperor, and Lan Yu. My son, get rid of them as well. The Emperor's corpse was seriously injured. His real strength had fallen to the level of a single crown emperor. The Corpse Emperor was still at the peak of the single crown emperor, and Lan Yu was not worth mentioning. Swish. The Emperor's corpse stood in front of the Corpse Emperor and growled, "To kill the Corpse Emperor, you have to get past me first." He had the air of a loyal protector of his master. If Su Yu was asked to kill the descendants of Beixian, he would be a bit reluctant to do so. The Corpse Clan. Haha, did they deserve to be loyal? They would eat people at every turn, and if it was light they would kill. Everywhere they passed, living beings would be plunged into misery and suffering, and all living things would be destroyed. Everything they did was dark, bloody, and heinous. Did they deserve to be pitied? Arrow! Su Yu shouted. A stream of light fell on his palm. He quickly put the bowstring on and aimed at the Emperor's corpse. The Emperor's corpse, who used to dominate the constellation sea, was now forced into a corner by Su Yu. It was sad and ridiculous. Su Yu, do you think I am afraid of you? Swish. Su Yu loosened his fingers, and the stream of light shot toward its head. However, the Emperor's corpse was still the Emperor's corpse. It could kill a single crown emperor with a single blow. However, the Emperor's corpse grabbed the stream of light with his palm. An unparalleled force pushed the Emperor corpse back and also shattered a large chunk of the Emperor corpse's palm. He only managed to stabilize his body after the arrow dissipated. However, he still managed to block Su Yu's attack. "That's all you've got." The Emperor's corpse laughed contemptuously. The fact that he was able to withstand the blow despite being seriously injured was undoubtedly a mockery of Su Yu. Su Yu replied calmly, "Is that so?" A spatial blade suddenly shot out from the arrow and sliced across the neck of the Emperor's corpse. The Emperor corpse was shocked and hurriedly dodged to the side. However, he was still a little too late. Half of his neck was severed. Dense corpse energy surged out and quickly healed the wound, reconnecting the head that was about to be separated from the body. This was why the corpse race was difficult to deal with. Unless their heads were chopped off, they wouldn't die no matter what. However, since Su Yu had made his move, it would surely be a fatal strike. He held the arrow tightly in his hand and shot out dozens of hidden spatial blades. Poochie! Poochie! After a series of random shots that covered the sky and covered the earth, not only was the head of the Emperor corpse cut off, but it was also completely annihilated. The Emperor corpse! The corpse Emperor's eyes were wide open as he roared. His pair of bloodshot eyes stared at Su Yu as if he wanted to devour him. "Su Yu, why is it always you?" The plan to conquer the Sea of Constellations had been ruined by the betrayal of Zhuji and the other corpse emperors because of him. The plan to conquer the Du Empire's civilization had also been ruined because of him. The evil Dragon Lord could not be released. Somehow, it was as if Su Yu was his natural nemesis, always restraining him. In the end, even the Emperor corpse that he relied on the most and was most loyal to died in the hands of Su Yu. His grievance and anger could only be imagined. "After the Sea of Constellations, you should have understood that you should have kept your distance when you saw me. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are today," Su Yu said calmly. With a wave of his hand, he summoned the arrow. He put the bowstring on and gently aimed at the corpse emperor. The corpse emperor's eyes were full of grief and indignation, as if he was a hero at the end of his road. Of course, that was his own opinion. In Su Yu's eyes, he was a criminal. His fingers loosened, and the flowing light mercilessly pierced the corpse emperor's head. As a single crown emperor, he had no resistance against the Tiani Bao. Poochie, his head was pierced on the spot. Under normal circumstances, he should have died immediately. However, unexpectedly, a large amount of black light burst out from the pierced head. A pitch-black bead floated out from the head. The bead contained a terrifying power, almost comparable to the Path Master's Buddhist Saraira. Dongfang Xia, who was smiling calmly, suddenly froze. "Divine bead of the Tao corpse, who are you?" As he spoke, he grabbed the air and suppressed the black bead. However, the corpse energy contained in the black bead was earth-shattering. With a slight tremble, it shook off Dongfang Xia's suppression. At the same time, the bead descended with a dense corpse energy, enveloping the corpse emperor. The bead rotated casually and cut through the barrier of the Du Empire, revealing senior sister Nihility outside. She took him with her and escaped into the void. Before leaving, the corpse emperor did not forget Lan Yu and grabbed her. "Where are you going?" Dongfang Xia was shocked and immediately attacked the bead. However, the bead did not even tremble. It easily blocked the attack. In the dense corpse energy, the corpse emperor's bloodshot eyes were full of hatred. "Su Yu, the Du Empire. I swear that if I don't destroy you, I will never be an emperor. Just wait and see." With a furious roar, the bead took him away and disappeared without a trace. Dongfang Xia was left behind with a gloomy face. He never expected that one of the corpse clan members he accidentally captured would have the divine bead of the Tao Corp. The so-called Tao Corpse, as the name suggested, was the existence of the Path Master of the Corpse clan. The divine bead of the Tao Corpse was the crystallization of a lifetime that could only be condensed by a Path Master. This creature, who was merely at the level of an emperor, was most likely a strong Path Master when he was alive and suddenly resurrected after his death. However, he had not inherited all the power of his previous life and was only a single crown emperor. If Su Yu's arrow hadn't pierced through his head and triggered the crisis, the divine bead of the Tao Corpse might not have appeared. Thinking that the Du Empire had provoked a Tao Corpse, Dongfang Xia's mood became gloomy. Su Yu took back the arrow with surprise and a hint of realization in his eyes. The faceless Buddha used his lifetime Path Master's Buddhist Sarira to suppress the Corpse Emperor. It was not groundless. He had doubts before. Although the Corpse Emperor was powerful, he was not worthy of being suppressed by a Path Master. At first, he thought it was because of his identity as the Corpse Emperor. Now he understood that the Corpse Emperor had been a Path Master in his previous life. That was why the faceless Buddha suppressed him at all costs, for fear that he would bring chaos to the world in the future. Compared to Dongfang Xia's worries, Su Yu's state of mind was much calmer. He had provoked more than one Path Master. He was not afraid of being bitten when there were too many of them. So what if there was one more? Moreover, the Corpse Emperor's current strength was still far from that of a Path Master. What was there to be afraid of? Perhaps it was because he had figured this out. Dongfang Xia's face gradually softened. But it was still a little gloomy. He glanced at Su Yu and Beixin. He looked at the former meaningfully, while the latter frowned deeply. "It's your turn." Dongfang Xia stared at them. Affected by the Corpse Emperor, he was in a bad mood. He snorted coldly. "Betraying the Du Empire is a great crime. Be prepared. Follow me back to the Empire." Beixin's people were nervous. Not killing them on the spot did not necessarily mean that they were spared. It could also be a warning to others and that they would be executed in public. Su Yu hesitated for a moment. He looked at the ancient Fuyao formation, which was gradually dimming, and quietly followed Dongfang Xia out of the earth vein. Back at the palace, everything was the same as before. The princess's mansion was still bustling with noise and excitement. Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhan had not escaped yet. They had no idea that Su Yu had left for several days. Su Yu smiled bitterly when he returned. Fate really made fools of him. Soon, at the Heavenly Harmony Palace, Dongfang Xia reviewed memorials all year round and handled state affairs. The first prince, second prince, third prince, fourth prince, fifth prince, and Princess Rukin were all present. They were both surprised and pleasantly surprised. They were pleasantly surprised that their father had returned. All the conspiracies and plots against the empire in the past had been swept away, which made them feel very relieved. They were surprised that their father was not hunting down the double-crowned fire dragon. Why did he suddenly appear in the palace without any movement? "Welcome back, father," the princes said in unison. Only Su Yu, who was standing opposite them, did not address them as such, which made the princes secretly speculate. Before they arrived, Su Yu was in the palace, and the atmosphere between him and Dongfang Xia was very strange. "How have you been, my son?" Dongfang Xia asked with a smile, looking them up and down. The first prince raised his head and puffed out his chest. "Thank you for your concern, father. We are very well." "That's good," Dongfang Xia said. "The Du Empire has been troubled recently. Many hidden hostile forces have taken the opportunity to stir up trouble. I am relieved that you are safe." Princess Rukin said with a smile, "Father, why did you suddenly come back? The gray-robed emperor said you were still on your way." Dongfang Xia chuckled, and his gaze toward Princess Rukin was exceptionally kind. "I came back early to take the opportunity to deal with a group of hostile forces, so I did not inform you. For example, Princess Rukin was the youngest and the most favored by Dongfang Xia. She was the only one who dared to ask such a question. For example, Dongfang Divine Lei. The prince's expressions changed, and they were pleasantly surprised. To the royal family, Dongfang Divine Lei was tantamount to a malignant tumor, which made them restless day and night. Over the years, there had been countless vicious attacks against the royal family, and most of them were planned by Dongfang Divine Lei. The most sensational incident was the kidnapping of the 3 imperial concubines by Xian Wulangjun, which had become an indelible humiliation to the royal family. Now that she had been killed, it was really a pleasant surprise. The heavy stone that had accumulated in their hearts for many years suddenly disappeared. Princess Rukin was startled, and she was a little absent-minded. Dead? Dead, just like that? The enemy whom she had tried to kill even at the cost of fighting for the position of crown prince had died just like that? A surreal feeling lingered in her mind. Of course, this was done with the help of your 6th brother. Dongfang Divine Lei was also killed by the 6th prince himself. The princes looked at Su Yu again, their gazes extremely complicated. On the one hand, they were jealous of Su Yu's abilities, which far surpassed them in all aspects. On the other hand, they had to admit that he was indeed outstanding. He had made a name for himself in the ruins of the Du Empire, and then he had besieged the great enemy of the royal family with their father. All these achievements could not be achieved by jealousy alone. Princess Rukin's face shone brightly when she heard that. He was really a great person in her life. He had helped her seize the position of crown prince, and he had also helped her kill her mother. However, she was surprised that Su Yu had gone to help her father. Princess Rukin knew his background better than anyone else. Besides, your 6th brother also killed the Corpse clan with his own hands, and led all the potential hostile forces of the Du Empire to one place, so that I could wipe them all out in one go. Dongfang Xia chuckled. I will draft a decree and announce it to the world. Chapter 1841. It was clearly Dongfang Xia's own plan to lure all the hostile forces into the trap and capture them all. Su Yu had only brought along Huan Mei. Now he was pushing all the blame onto Su Yu. He did not think this was a good thing. There were bound to be remaining hostile forces, and they would definitely vent their hatred on Su Yu. Moreover, that Huan Mei had an extraordinary identity, as she was from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce might not blame Su Yu for her death. Dongfang Xia looked at Su Yu with a faint smile, then retracted his gaze. In addition, there is a group of traitors from the Empire. Bring them here. Under the watch of a group of guards, the core members of Beixin's bloodline were all brought into the hall. The first prince's pupils shrank, and the other princes were also shocked. Princess Rukin covered her mouth, unable to contain her surprise. How many dynasties had it been since a king had betrayed them? Once this was announced, it would be a historic event that would shake the empire. What was most unbelievable was that Bei Wangchun had displayed outstanding talent. Sooner or later, he would become the most powerful fief in the empire. Bei Wangchun might even break through the 3 crown emperors and become a powerful national guardian. It was unimaginable that such a family had betrayed them. My sons, what do you think I should do? Dongfang Xia asked calmly. For a moment, the princes were silent. There was only one way to betray the empire, and that was to wipe out the entire clan. What did their father mean by asking them for their opinions? Did he not want to kill Beixin's bloodline and wanted them to find a way out? Or was he trying to test their attitude towards Beixin's bloodline? To be honest, the princes were inextricably linked to their fiefs, and this was even more evident during the fight for the Great Yu's relics. Behind every prince, there was a conferred king who supported them. Beixin's support was undoubtedly the first prince. It was the first prince's turn to be in a difficult position. Dongfang Xia was unfathomable. His every word and action often had a deeper meaning. It would be a disaster if he made a slight mistake. He thought quickly, and a moment later, his eyes shot out a cold light. Father, I think they should be dealt with according to the laws of the empire. There was a reason for his answer. No matter what his father, the emperor, thought, he insisted on handling the matter according to the law and was impartial. Even if his father wanted to keep Beishin's bloodline alive, it could not be said that the great imperial prince's opinion was wrong. On the other hand, if his imperial father wanted to test the attitude of him and Beishin's bloodline, and if he pleaded for leniency and angered his imperial father's suspicions, then he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Hearing this, many people from Beishin's bloodline stared at the first prince. Bei Wangqin gazed deeply at him and heaved a long sigh, but he didn't say a word. The north-gazing Pearl's beautiful face lost all color, unable to believe that the first one to request for severe punishment would be him, her future husband. Dongfang Xia's face was filled with an unfathomable expression. "My son, I remember that you are engaged to the north-pronged Pearl, right?" "What engagement?" The eldest imperial prince was secretly resentful. The north-gazing Pearl and the sixth imperial brother had been together for a long time, so he couldn't do anything about it. "Imperial father, it is precisely because of this that I should adhere to the laws of the country and not care about the personal feelings between a man and a woman," he replied righteously. Dongfang Xia nodded slightly. What about Hui Ren?" Hui Ren was the name of the second prince. When his name was mentioned, the second prince said expressionlessly, "I agree with the first brother's decision." The third prince, the fourth prince, and the fifth prince stood out one after another, expressing their agreement with the first prince. No one was willing to express their opinions carelessly and anger their imperial father. "What about Rukin?" Dongfang Xia asked. Princess Rukin was even more cautious. She had worked hard to become the first in the fight for the nation's fate, and the crown prince was in sight. If there was a slight mistake, all her previous efforts would be in vain. "Imperial father, I also agree with the first brother's opinion." Anyway, she had never interacted with Beishin's bloodline. To be exact, Emperor Wuhan had once visited them to rope them in, but was mercilessly rejected by Beishin's bloodline. She didn't need to take the risk to plead for Beishin's bloodline. 5 princes and 1 princess unanimously agreed to exterminate Beishin's bloodline. The people from Beishin's bloodline looked bitter. Beishin's bloodline was going to end here. No matter how much they had contributed to the dynasty, and no matter how deep their relationship with the first prince was, when they made a mistake, everything was equal to 0. Dongfang Xia's expression was unchanged, and he remained silent. Everyone knew that he was contemplating and making his final decision. He could decide the life and death of Beishin's bloodline with a single thought. Beishin's bloodline no longer held any hope. How could there be any hope when there was no one to speak up for them? As Dongfang Xia's eyes gradually turned cold, he had already made a decision in his heart. It was the worst kind. But just as he was about to speak, Su Yu, who had been silent all this time, slowly said, "Imperial father, I think we can be lenient." The 5 princes and princesses turned to look at the source of the voice and were surprised. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the murderous intent in Dongfang Xia's eyes at the last moment. He did not want to leave Beishin's bloodline alive. Su Yu's objection was, in fact, going against his imperial father's wishes. If his imperial father was angry, the consequences would be unimaginable. But hearing Su Yu's words, the cold light in Dongfang Xia's eyes slowly faded, and he wore a faint smile. "Oh? Why? According to the laws of our empire, only death awaits those who betray us. This is the only way to intimidate the entire territory." Su Yu spoke frankly with assurance. "First of all, only me, my brothers, my sister, and my imperial father know about the betrayal of Beishin's bloodline. If we did not say it, who would know? Could it be those traitors who are already dead? Secondly, there is a reason for the betrayal of Beishin's bloodline. I believe that my imperial father, who controls the entire territory, must know about it," he pointed out. Dongfang Xia smiled faintly. "Continue." "Their betrayal was not a matter of loyalty. They were forced to do so, and they had a forgivable original intention. Finally, the Dew Empire has been promoted to a 3-star civilization, and it is the time to govern the neighboring civilizations. It is the time to use people. Beishin's bloodline has guarded the borders for many years, and they have made great contributions. How can we easily erase their contributions? Why not keep them and let them continue to serve us? After listening to his words, the people of Beishin's bloodline stared at Su Yu in disbelief. Even the north-gazing Pearl felt like she was dreaming. In her heart, Su Yu was the archenemy of the Beishin bloodline, and the sinner who had harmed her deeply. The north-gazing Pearl resented him. However, when Beishin's bloodline was in trouble, the one who helped them was not the first prince, whom she had a close relationship with and was engaged to. It was the man she hated so much. She did not understand why Su Yu had done this. Only by cutting off Beishin's bloodline would no one leak the news that he had stolen the Beishin royal tripod. What he had done had no benefits. Bei Wangchen was stunned. He had imagined which prince would plead for the Beishin bloodline, but Su Yu was the only one he had not imagined. Dongfang Xia looked at Su Yu quietly. He had even known that his own son had died long ago. Moreover, the disappearance of the Beishin royal tripod, which was related to the fate of the Dew Empire, he had already known. The reason he had asked for the opinions of all the princes and princesses, but not Su Yu, was that he knew that Su Yu would kill him out of guilt. Who knew that Su Yu would take the initiative to plead for the Beishin bloodline? Dongfang Xia looked at Su Yu meaningfully. He realized that he had the world under his control, and his sons were firmly in his grasp. Only Su Yu gave him an unfathomable feeling. He even suspected that if he wanted to kill Su Yu, he would have to pay an unimaginable price. "My son, do you mean what you said?" Dongfang Xia asked calmly, his face expressionless. Su Yu nodded slightly. "Every word is sincere. The Beishin bloodline was implicated by him, and he could not sit back and do nothing." Dongfang Xia was silent for a long while, then nodded slightly and said, "Draft the decree." The eunuch beside him immediately raised his pen. "Prince Beishin has protected the country. He will be rewarded with 10,000 divine stones and a beautiful concubine. Bei Wangchen is talented and will be promoted to the commander of the Imperial Guards." Hearing this, the 5 princes and princesses' faces changed drastically. Their father had changed his intention to kill them and rewarded them generously. Not only did he destroy the Beishin bloodline, but he also rewarded them to appease them. All because of Su Yu's suggestion. They knew their father well. He was headstrong and rarely listened to the opinions of others. This was definitely the first time they had seen something like this. How much did he trust Su Yu? The Beishin bloodline felt like they were in a dream. Prince Beishin was pleasantly surprised and suddenly kowtowed. "I am guilty. Speak." "The Beishin royal cauldron is lost." The 5 princes and Princess Rukin were all shocked. That was the destiny of the Dew Empire. Once it was lost, the foundation of the empire would be shaken, and the empire would be in turmoil. Even the death of his whole family would not be enough punishment. "I know." However, Dongfang Xia said calmly. How did he know? It was the Beishin bloodline's turn to be stunned. When did he know? Prince Beishin said in fear and trepidation, "Your Majesty, please punish me." Dongfang Xia laughed lightly. "It's just a cauldron. It doesn't matter if it's lost." Many people were dumbfounded. The cauldron that was said to stabilize the destiny of the Dew Empire was just a cauldron in Dongfang Xia's eyes. He looked at the crowd and said calmly, "How could a few small cauldrons contain the destiny of the Dew Empire? The real destiny of the nation is here." He pointed at himself and then at the crowd. The crowd did not understand what he meant. Dongfang Xia said with emotion, "The cauldron of destiny was forged by the first emperor, and it stabilized the destiny of the empire in different places. However, how many times do you think the empire is now? 1,000 times. 10,000 times. The original Dew Empire was even worse than the constellation C. However, the destiny of the nation in the cauldron has never increased. Dongfang Xia's gaze was profound. The destiny of the empire is never decided by the destiny of the nation. It's decided by me, my sons, and all the ministers. You are the real destiny of the Du Empire. His words made the crowd's blood boil. The empire was what it was today because of them, not because of those dead cauldrons. Therefore, it's no big deal if it's lost. The destiny of the Du Empire will not weaken because of a small cauldron. Instead, it will grow stronger because of everyone's efforts. Hearing this, the crowd kowtowed and shouted, "Long live the Emperor!" Dongfang Xia waved his hand. "You may rise. Continue drafting the decree." It's not over yet? The crowd then realized that the drafting of the decree was interrupted. The north-gazing pearl is virtuous and virtuous. The sixth prince's character and martial arts are top-notch. The two of them will get married within 10 days, and the whole nation will celebrate. The crowd was shocked. Even the north-gazing pearl was rewarded. The entire Beixin bloodline was rewarded. Wait, what was rewarded? Chapter 1842. The faces of Princess Rukin and the princes were full of doubt, shock, and confusion. Did father say something wrong? The north-facing pearl and the sixth prince? Was the north-facing pearl the first prince's fiancé? Moreover, why with the sixth prince? Was there a connection between them? Suyu was also stunned. He did not expect Dongfang Xia to bring out such an imperial edict. The north-facing pearl also froze on the spot. She stared at Suyu in shock and confusion. The engagement between her and the first prince had existed many years ago. Could Dongfang Xia have forgotten about it? The first prince's expression kept changing. He was also puzzled. He said hesitantly, "Father, the north-facing pearl is engaged to me. I'm afraid it's inappropriate to give her such a reward." He had no feelings for the north-facing pearl, so he would not feel bad if he killed her. But he could not tolerate the fact that his woman was engaged to someone else. In the eyes of outsiders, wouldn't it mean that the first prince was incompetent and allowed his fiancée to be taken away by someone else? Everyone pricked up their ears to listen. They also felt that this imperial edict was made without rhyme or reason. "Oh, how did your engagement come about? Do you have any impression of it?" Dongfang Xia asked calmly. The first prince bowed and said, "I remember. When I broke through to the divine warrior of heaven and earth, you praised me and asked me what I wanted. I said I wanted to marry the north-facing pearl, the young princess of Beixin's bloodline." Father nodded in agreement. The engagement between them was actually based on interest. In order to win over Beixin's bloodline and bribe Bei Wangchen, the first prince decided to marry Beixin's bloodline. In this way, the two parties were tied together. Beixin's bloodline had to fully support the first prince's ascension to the throne. For many years, Bei Wangchen had been secretly recruiting people for the first prince to use in the relic of the Great Yu for this reason. Dongfang Xia nodded slowly. "Well, what happened after that?" The first prince was startled. "That's what happened after that." Dongfang Xia's tone became unfathomable. "What I'm asking is, did you issue any imperial edicts after that?" "No." He only nodded in agreement, but did not say anything after that. The first prince did not pursue the matter further. "No, but it was father who personally agreed to it," the eldest imperial prince argued. Dongfang Xia said indifferently, "Since there isn't, your engagement is just a verbal arrangement. It doesn't count." The eldest imperial prince was unwilling to give up and said, "Father, please reconsider. Although there is no imperial edict, everyone in the world knows. If you decree my fiancée to be betrothed to someone else, wouldn't it become a joke in the world? The reputation of the royal family will also be affected." A sharp light flashed in Dongfang Xia's eyes and his tone became slightly cold. "Are you threatening me?" The hearts of Princess Rukin and the princes trembled. Their imperial father was angry. The great prince could not help but shrink his neck. However, if he really shrank back now, he would never be able to raise his head again. Imperial Father, please reconsider. He kowtowed heavily and pleaded. Dongfang Xia's eyes turned cold. After a moment of silence, he said, "Fine. We will give you a chance. If you still can't keep the north-facing pearl, then it will be your own fault. If you try to stop us again, A trace of killing intent could be felt clearly. "Thank you, Father," the eldest prince said. He had finally won a glimmer of hope. Dongfang Xia said, "The north-gazing pearl." "Yes, Your Highness." The north-gazing pearl hurriedly kowtowed, her heart uneasy. Between a man and a woman, mutual consent is important. Let me ask you, between the first prince and the sixth prince, if you had to choose a fiancé, who would you choose? Answer truthfully. The eldest prince looked at her fervently and kept signaling her with his eyes. His eyes were exceptionally gentle, no longer as indifferent as before. This time, the north-gazing pearl was in an awkward position. She had never liked the eldest prince. She had only listened to her father's orders and sacrificed herself for the interests of the family. But as for Su Yu, she had hated him to the core. Although her hatred had lessened, it was still too much to say that she liked him. Between the two of them, she did not like either of them. What made her smile bitterly was that Dongfang Xia would only allow her to choose one of the two. How would she dare to negotiate in front of Dongfang Xia? Not long ago, Dongfang Xia's tangible killing intent could not be faked. Without Su Yu's plea, they would not be in the situation where they were being rewarded now. Their entire clan might have been wiped out, their heads rolling. She raised her head, her eyes darting back and forth between the eldest prince and Su Yu. The eldest prince's ardent gaze was completely different from the merciless gaze that had just called for the annihilation of their entire clan. This made the north-gazing pearl feel disgusted. She looked at Su Yu, only to see Su Yu frowning and staring at her. He kept shaking his head and mouthing, "I am not interested in you, do not choose me. North-gazing pearl, do you think I want to be loyal?" Ever since they first met, this man had never made her happy. She had suffered at his hands time and time again. Now, he was even speaking in a tone that belittled her, which really made her furious. To be honest, she instinctively leaned towards the eldest prince. For a woman to have two partners, it would not be good for her reputation. But seeing Su Yu's expression, and thinking of the curse that had not been lifted, she could not help but feel angry. She turned her head and said to Dongfang Xia, "I choose the sixth prince, Dongfang Yu." The eldest prince's face was ashen. Su Yu's expression was also ugly. This woman, couldn't she have continued to be the eldest prince's concubine? Why did she have to change her target? He had a feeling that Dongfang Xia must have had a plan to bestow marriage between the two of them. Dongfang Xia's expression softened. "So, you like him?" North-gazing pearl bit her lips and nodded. "Yes, I like him very much." "Why don't you tell me how you like him?" "Ugh." It was north-gazing pearl's turn to be restless. She had only said it casually and had not thought much about it. But since the monarch had asked, she could only brace herself and make up a lie. When the sixth prince first went to the Sea of Constellations to train, he attacked me due to a misunderstanding, and then we got to know each other through a fight, and I gradually developed feelings for the sixth prince. Su Yu was dumbfounded. This woman was good at making up lies. At that time, she had clearly been captured by Su Yu as a hostage. It was good enough that she did not strangle Su Yu to death. She had gradually developed feelings for him. "Haha, interesting." Dongfang Xia laughed. "So, you have developed feelings for him over time, and you can't extricate yourself from it?" North-gazing pearl's heart twitched. To be precise, she hated him so much that she could not extricate herself. Every time the curse was triggered, she would be ravaged in her dreams. When she woke up, her hatred for Su Yu would deepen. A lie often required thousands of lies to cover it up. "Yes, I can't extricate myself from it." North Gazing Pearl braced herself and answered. Dongfang Xia said playfully, "Is that so? Why can't I see it? I have seen many lovers, but it is the first time I have seen someone with such clear eyes and no feelings. Are you lying to me? You know the crime of deceiving the monarch. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because the sixth prince is pleading for you." This was what it meant by the monarch's power was unpredictable. Just now, he had wanted to reward them, and now he was going to turn against them. Pear Duke, North Xian Duke, North Wangchen, and North Gazing Pavilion were all shocked. North Gazing Pearl's beautiful face turned pale, and her face was full of panic. She was about to be seen through. North Xian Duke knew that if he did not act decisively, he would be in trouble. He could only put on an old face and said awkwardly, "Your Majesty, to be honest, my daughter does not want to eat or drink with the sixth prince, and she is deeply in love with him." "Is that so? Why can't I see that?" Dongfang Xia sneered. Duchess Beixin blushed and said, "Your Majesty, I won't hide it from you. Ever since my daughter fell in love with the sixth prince, she has been suffering from a strange illness. Every time she acts up, she will dream of having sex with the sixth prince." North Gazing Pearl's face turned red immediately. At this moment, she wished she could find a hole to hide in and never come out again. How could this be? She had found the divine herb, and she would be able to bid farewell to this shameful curse in a month's time. But she made a wrong decision, and her father had to use this matter to cover up his lie. She regretted not acting so impulsively, and choosing the first prince wouldn't have so many problems. For a moment, the benevolence hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Princess Rooken blinked and looked at North Gazing Pearl in a daze. She mumbled, "What do you mean by having sex with him and having sex with him? Why do my royal brothers look so weird?" In the originally quiet hall, his mumbling was amplified by several times. Even Dongfang Xia, who was sitting on the dragon throne, could hear it clearly. Moreover, the North Gazing Pearl was so close at hand. Her face turned even redder, and her whole body stiffened as if she had been frozen. Prince Beixin sighed secretly. "Daughter, I'm sorry, I can only let you suffer." Pear King, North Gazing, and North Gazing were all blushing and embarrassed. The first prince was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Although he had already known about it, he was still resentful to hear it announced in public. After a moment of silence, Dongfang Xia coughed awkwardly. "Oh, I see. I didn't expect North Gazing Pearl to be so deeply in love with my son." He turned to look at the first prince. "You heard it all? What else do you have to say?" The first prince was motionless like a wooden statue. Withdrawing his gaze, Dongfang Xia said, "Since North Gazing Pearl is so sincere, I will grant your wish and betroth you to my son." North Gazing Pearl had an urge to cry. "You were the one who forced me to marry Suyu, but why did it sound like I was the one who begged to marry Suyu?" Those who didn't know better would think that North Gazing Pearl abandoned the first prince and went to the sixth prince. However, she couldn't refute any of this. She had to sincerely thank the emperor for his kindness. "Good. It's decided then. In 10 days, you two will get married, and I will host it personally." At that moment, the eunuch had finished drafting the imperial edict. "Send out the summons. Announce it to the whole territory. Everyone must know that my sixth prince is getting married." Yes. An imperial edict was sent to Beixin. At the same time, the news about the sixth prince and the North Gazing Pearl, spread like wildfire. In just a few days, the news had spread like wildfire. From the people in the villages to the powerful officials in the imperial city, everyone was talking about it. "Have you heard? The North Gazing Pearl, risked her life to beg to marry the sixth prince. She almost angered His Majesty, and caused a great disaster." Chapter 1843. That's strange. I also heard that North Wangzhou was originally engaged to the first prince, but ever since she met the sixth prince, she was so shocked that she couldn't eat or drink. The Beijing family came to His Majesty and begged for a decree. His Majesty only agreed to it because of the Beijing family's contributions. He even rewarded the royal family for this. On the streets of the imperial city, in a luxurious carriage, the North Gazing Pearl's cheeks flushed as she listened. She stomped her feet and gnashed her teeth, saying, "Which rumor-monger started this nonsense? How did it spread like this? When did she plead? Since when did he seek death and hang himself?" What was even more ridiculous was that the whole family of the Beijing family came to the imperial city to plead. It was ridiculous. Someone actually believed it. "Sister, you can't blame others." North Wangting, who was beside her, laughed. "You chose the sixth prince." To be honest, grandfather, father, and big brother were all very surprised. They thought you were really interested in the sixth prince. North Wangju's face turned red. I couldn't stand his arrogant attitude. Didn't he just save the Beijing family? What right did he have to look down on me? He even mouthed to me and said he wasn't interested in me. He told me not to choose him. Brother Wangting, don't you think he's too much? North Wangting couldn't help laughing, but he stared deeply into her eyes. He is indeed too much, but I'm thinking, when will our calm, steady, and intelligent sister lose her composure and act on her emotions? I didn't. North Wangju hurriedly defended herself. North Wangting's eyes gradually sharpened, as if he could see through her heart. Is that so? Then have you noticed that since when did your eyes rarely linger on Big Brother? North Wangju's expression froze. Second brother, what do you mean? You know what I mean. North Wangting said indifferently. I can see your abnormal feelings for Big Brother. I wanted to stop you, but you've changed. This is all thanks to Su Yu's appearance and that curse. North Wangju felt as if she had stepped on air and fallen into a bottomless cliff. The secret she thought only she knew had been seen through by her low-key second brother. Little sister, be at ease as the sixth prince's bride. I've met him before, or rather, he once saved my life. I know him better than any of you. North Wangting said, you might still be guessing at the sixth prince's goal and plot in saving our North Xian branch. But I think he just doesn't want to see our Beijing faction get implicated because of him. He is a man of righteousness. If you really marry him, you will be 100 times better than the first prince. The North Gazing Pearl was stunned speechless. I really like him? The North Gazing Pearl was perplexed. If it wasn't for her second brother mentioning it, she wouldn't have realized that she rarely paid attention to Bei Wangchun. The feeling she had hidden in her heart in the past had vanished into thin air. Her mind was filled with hatred for him after she woke up from her dream. But now that she thought about it, if she really hated him, why had she never thought of killing him? Was that really hate? Or was he deceiving himself to hide his desire and yearning for the dream? We're here, said the coachman. North Wangting patted her on the shoulder. Don't think so much, just be a good bride. Come, let's customize your phoenix robe. This was the most famous custom-made clothing shop in the imperial city. Many members of the royal family came here to have their clothes customized. If one didn't have a certain status and identity, they might not receive them. The North Gazing Pearl nodded. Soon after, they took their measurements and left. The boss of the custom-made clothing saw them off with a smile. Looking at their receding figures, a strange look flashed across his face. In the sixth prince's mansion, the royal tailor also came to take Su Yu's measurements and customize the groom's clothes. Su Yu was extremely helpless. He was grounded by Dongfang Xia and was not allowed to leave the palace. In fact, even if he was not grounded, with Dongfang Xia's power, once he left, Dongfang Xia would immediately notice. But until now, Su Yu still couldn't figure out why Dongfang Xia wanted him to marry the North Gazing Pearl. Why was he willing to offend his eldest son in order to facilitate this marriage? He didn't think that Dongfang Xia was simply teasing him. This person was good at planning, and every move he made had a profound meaning. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lured the Corpse clan, Dongfang Shunlei, and many other potential enemies to one place and annihilated them in one go. His seemingly meaningless actions must have some ulterior motive. After the tailor left, Su Yu simply trained on the spot. In the ruins of the Great Yu, he had obtained many good things. One was the evil dragon Bible, and the other was the dragon's blood. The body that was stolen by the sinful lady has been tempered by the divine blood of the world annihilation dragon and the epic-making dragon. It has also cultivated the evil dragon divine body to the divine body level. What a pity! However, this time I have obtained the evil dragon Bible, which is far more powerful than the evil dragon divine body. The dragon's blood is also the blood of the fire dragon of the four-crowned emperor. The quantity is far more than the dragon's blood tempered in the past. If I continue to train, the effect will be far better than before. Secondly, after absorbing the dragon's blood, the power of the royal power dragon sword could be further enhanced. With that in mind, Su Yu immediately entered a state of isolation. Under the state of time acceleration of 500 times, he took out 2 gourds of dragon's blood and drank it all in one gulp. The bitter and spicy feeling hit him like a flood, and then turned into a flame burning in his body. Even the current Su Yu felt waves of pain from it. This dragon's blood is quite fierce. I wonder if it originated from the fire dragon, Su Yu muttered to himself and began to train with his eyes closed. 3 days later, Su Yu had already spent more than 2 years. The dragon's blood in the 2 gourds had been completely tempered. His skin was fiery red, and dragon scales were faintly visible under his skin, emitting bursts of heat. His eyes were engulfing and spitting flames. At first glance, it was somewhat similar to true Lord Fire Dragon's real dragon Divine Fire. He had seen the power of the real dragon Divine Fire with his own eyes. The body of the four-crowned Emperor, evil Dragon Lord, had been incinerated by the Divine Fire. Su Yu was secretly surprised. He did not expect that tempered divine blood would bring about a faint wisp of real dragon divine fire. Although it was not as powerful as true Lord Fire Dragon, it could still easily burn a single-crowned emperor to death. Even a double-crowned emperor would lose a layer of skin in the face of this flame. Apart from that, his physical strength had also greatly increased. Compared to the past, his strength had increased tenfold, comparable to when he did not have the law of great strength. Combined with the law of great strength, he should be able to double his previous limit. The Tianyi bow was pulled back 3 inches, and the power that erupted from it would definitely increase dramatically. Of course, the most important thing was the evil dragon Bible. After 2 years of training, he had barely reached the lower class of the first stage, Nirvana of the evil dragon. He could transform into an evil dragon and fight with his enemies. However, he would only know its specific power after some testing. He had wanted to continue training, but Princess Rukan and Emperor Wu Hen had come to visit. "Congratulations, brother. You have found a marriage," Princess Rukan said with a smile as soon as she saw him. Emperor Wu Hen could not stop smiling. "I really have to congratulate you. The north-facing pearl is a famous beauty of the empire. Many people are envious of her." Su Yu invited them in, closed the door gently, and said calmly, "You are not here to congratulate me, are you?" He sat down casually and said, "There is no need to hide our relationship. Just tell me what you have to say." Just when he was upset, the 2 women were being secretive and not as free and easy as they used to be. He was even more displeased. Princess Rukan stuck out her tongue apologetically and massaged his shoulders in an ingratiating manner. "Brother, don't be angry. We were just joking." Emperor Wu Hen also apologized. "We are treating you like an outsider. This time, we have indeed come to ask you something." They were nervous, but they did not know if they should ask. Glancing at them, Su Yu knew what they wanted to ask. He sighed and said, "There is no need to guess. Dongfang Xia knows everything. From the moment I, the 6th prince, appeared, He knew I was a fake because he already knew about the fall of the real sixth prince. All of a sudden, the two women's beautiful faces turned pale, and they were extremely shocked. Emperor Wu Hen's face was ashen, and he slumped weakly into the chair. However, you do not have to worry too much. If Dongfang Xia wanted to punish me, would he have let me live until now? Would he have forced me to marry the north-facing pearl in the name of the sixth prince? Su Yu tried to calm them down. He analyzed, although my identity is fake, not only did I not do anything to harm the empire, but I also saved the empire's fate. Dongfang Xia should be well aware of this, so he will not blame you. Hearing this, the two women thought about it carefully, and their heavy hearts eased. Sigh, we did not expect things to turn out this way. Now, Mr. Su has suffered, and we have an engagement for no reason. Emperor Wu Hen sighed. Su Yu shook his head. It is not your fault. If you want to blame someone, blame it on me for thinking too simply of Dongfang Xia. Brother, why don't you stay here? Princess Ru Chun squeezed his shoulders diligently and said with a smile, since father pretends not to know anything, let it go on like this. I quite like you, my brother. Su Yu rolled his eyes. Cut it out. How is my current situation any different from being imprisoned? Moreover, he frowned deeply. I still have to find someone. Princess Ru Chun patted her chest with her small hand. Don't worry, I will do what I promised you, and help you find those two friends. Now that she was the heir to the throne, she had 10 great feudal lands, and powerful officials from all over had come to visit her. It was not a big deal to ask them to help her keep an eye on 2 people. Don't go, brother, Princess Ru Chun said coquettishly. Su Yu patted her hand and sighed with a bitter smile. Do you think there is any hope for me to leave now? He could feel a gaze sweeping over from time to time, probing his movements. It was Dongfang Xia, who was staring at him like he was a thief. He did not think that Dongfang Xia would really see him as a son. Such an ambitious and ruthless person would never allow an existence that he could not control to remain by his side. He would definitely take action to get rid of the sixth prince, or use a reasonable method to remove him from the sixth prince's name, so that he would no longer be a threat. This was the question that had been on his mind for the past few days. What was Dongfang Xia up to? Your Highness, the young princess of the North Gazing Pearl and the young prince of the North Gazing Pavilion are requesting an audience. Them? Su Yu sighed. Let them in. Chapter 1844. Brother, let me listen too. I won't tell on you, Princess Rukan said coquettishly as she blinked her eyes. Su Yu smiled lightly. You can listen if you want. Maybe she and I will talk about flirting with Feng Luan and Mount Wu. Do you still want to listen? Princess Rukan screamed, embarrassed and angry. She stamped her feet. You're so naughty. You're still laughing at me. That day at the Benevolence Palace, Princess Rukan muttered the meaning of the 8 characters with a confused look. When she returned, she was immediately lectured by Emperor Wuhan, who told her what they meant. Only then did she realize that she had made a fool of herself at the Benevolence Palace, and she had no idea what they meant. Now, hearing Su Yu's teasing, she blushed again. She was so angry that she punched him and ran away. A moment later, North Gazing Pearl and North Gazing Pavilion came to visit. Greetings, Sixth Prince. North Gazing Pearl and North Gazing Pavilion bowed in unison. Su Yu looked straight ahead. Is there anything you need from me? North Gazing Pavilion bowed. Father and grandfather were ordered by the Emperor to return to the fief in a hurry. The 2 of us, brother and sister, would like to express our gratitude to Sixth Prince on behalf of the Beixin family. As he spoke, he took out some gifts. These are some specialties of the Beixin land. I hope Sixth Prince will like them, North Gazing said slowly as he put down the gifts in his hands. Su Yu nodded. Thank you. Put them down. North Gazing rolled his eyes. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. North Gazing Pearl stood up as well, but North Gazing signaled for her to stay. North Gazing Pearl pointed at her own nose. You want me to stay? Nodding his head, North Gazing Pavilion left the room, closing the door behind him with a meaningful smile on his face. Only the two of them were left in the room. North Gazing Pearl felt uneasy. She looked down at the tips of her shoes, not knowing what to say. Do you really want to marry me? Suyu looked at her and asked. North Gazing Pearl subconsciously puffed out her chest and shook her head. Of course not. I have the same intention. Suyu nodded. If that's the case, you can disappear for now. That way, I don't have to marry you, and you don't have to marry me. North Gazing Pearl frowned. Was he so unwilling to marry her? How was she lacking? Even if he had abnormal feelings for Bei Wangchen in the past, it had never crossed any ethical line. What right do you have to look down on me? That's easy for you to say. After I go missing, what will happen to the Beixin bloodline? Dongfang Xia is temperamental, who knows what he will do? North Gazing Pearl said angrily. Suyu was indifferent. Her reaction was within reason. After remaining silent for a long while, Suyu said, North Gazing Pearl, no matter how you felt in the past, you chose to marry me against your own will. But I can't give you a future, and you made a choice that you shouldn't have. He looked straight into the eyes of the North Gazing Pearl and said deeply, In the near future, I will either die accidentally, disappear from the world, or the title of the sixth prince will be removed. In short, it won't end well. You should be mentally prepared. He had a feeling that Dongfang Xia would deal with him. The North Gazing Pearl's choice to marry him was perhaps the biggest mistake of her life. What do you mean? The other party's tone was sincere. The North Gazing Pearl's anger subsided, and she asked in confusion. You will understand when the time comes. Suyu sighed softly as he couldn't tell her the truth. The North Gazing Pearl had a feeling of being kept in the dark, which was very uncomfortable. After thinking it over, she somewhat understood Suyu's intention. She said coldly, Humph, you just want to go missing and run away from the wedding to find your 3 female companions, don't you? Suyu furrowed his brows. 3 female companions? When he came to the Du Empire, the only female friend of the same age as him was Princess Rukan. Who are you talking about? Suyu asked. The North Gazing Pearl snorted. Think about it yourself. After saying that, she flicked her sleeves and left. Suyu was left puzzled. 3 female companions, is it Xia Jingyu and Shenga? But who is the third one? It doesn't seem like he is talking about the 2 of them. The wedding was approaching day by day. In addition to training, Suyu also started to investigate some puzzling things in the past. In the evening, Bei Wangchen came to visit. Now, he had been appointed as the commander of the Imperial City Guards by imperial decree. He was in charge of the safety of the imperial family and enjoyed a high status, which was even higher than the 10 great conferred kings. It could be said that the bloodline of Beixin had profited from a disaster. Your Highness, I have found the information you wanted. Bei Wangchen still found it difficult to face Suyu. It was difficult for him to associate Suyu, who seemed to be a peak overlord, with the strong man who had crushed him to the point that he couldn't even fight back. Suyu took a stack of information from him and nodded. Thank you. Don't mention it. Compared to the fact that you saved the entire bloodline of Beixin, this is just a small favor. Your Highness, I will take my leave now. Bei Wangchen came and went like the wind. He was in a much better mood when he left. He had more or less returned the favor he owed. Suyu opened the information and read it in detail. He raised his eyebrows slightly. He had asked Bei Wangchen to help him get the information from the rewards pavilion because he wanted to know why he had a bounty placed on his head twice. The second bounty was for Dongfang Shunlei. She mistakenly thought that Suyu had killed Xielang, so she was looking for Suyu to take revenge. However, the first bounty was suddenly cut off midway. The person who had placed the bounty had taken the initiative to withdraw it. As Suyu stared at the information on it, a strange look appeared in his eyes. As expected, the Dongfang divine tears were not the ones on the two bounties. When the first reward was announced, Su Yu was still in the Tao Tai cage, unable to escape. Therefore, the first person who offered a bounty for him was definitely not Dongfang Xunlei. He had not even appeared in the absolute beginning realm at that time. There was no enmity between them. It was definitely not her. In the past, he took it for granted that it was her both times. Now that he was free, he thought about it carefully and realized that there was more to it than met the eye. Now that he checked, there was indeed a problem. Who is looking for me? Su Yu was secretly surprised. At that time, he was still in the Tao Tai cage, so who in the great beginning realm would know him? Unfortunately, a long time ago, the person who posted the bounty had already taken the initiative to withdraw the person who posted the bounty. A trace of doubt lingered in his chest. Time ticked by. The news of the engagement between the sixth prince and the north-pronged pearl spread like wildfire. The government offices of the major fiefdoms, cities, and towns began to hang festive decorations. The imperial city was even more so. After being informed by the imperial guards, all shops along the way were to hang colorful ribbons, firecrackers, and red lanterns. The entire imperial city was bustling with activity. As far as the eye could see, it was a sea of joyous red. Shopkeeper Li. North Wangding came to the tailor's shop where the groom's clothes were custom-made. Is the bride's phoenix robe ready? Haha, it's ready a long time ago. How could I dare to delay the young princess's wedding? Shopkeeper Li took out a space storage device and handed it to North Wanting. North Wanting examined it carefully and confirmed that there were no problems. These are the remaining divine stones, please count them. He placed the bag containing the divine stones on the counter. Mr. North Wanting, you must be joking. Your presence brings light to my humble shop. How could I not trust you? Shopkeeper Li did not even look at it before putting the small bag away. North Wanting nodded and walked back to his temporary lodging. Shopkeeper Li smiled and watched him disappear from his sight. His smile slowly faded and was replaced by a sly smile. 2 days later, the day of the wedding finally arrived. In the sixth prince's mansion, Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhan helped Su Yu put on the groom's clothes. He was already handsome, but now he looked even more spirited. The most handsome groom of the Du Empire has been born. Princess Rukin's eyes were twinkling like stars. I want to marry you. What should I do? Su Yu was not in a good mood. He calmly said, All right, I'll report to the Emperor immediately and replace you. Will that do? Haha, I don't have your guts to challenge my father, Princess Rukin said with an embarrassed smile. Princess Rukin smiled in embarrassment. However, when she looked at the groom before her, she did feel somewhat upset in her heart. She had grown up alone in the royal family. Her brothers had not been able to give her any warmth, but Su Yu, the fake prince, had. If it were possible, she would be very willing to be with him for real, whether as brother and sister or husband and wife. Now that he was going to marry North Wangzhou, she felt an inexplicable discomfort in her heart. It was as if her favorite thing had been snatched away. She, who had been in high spirits, felt a little downcast. As if he could read her mind, Emperor Wuhan sighed quietly. All right, it's time to go to the Supreme Ling Hall. The young princess of North Wangzhou will be here soon. Su Yu looked at the mirror and sighed inwardly. He had been looking for a chance to escape, but Dongfang Xia had been watching him too closely. Now, he had been forced into a corner. With some difficulty, Su Yu arrived at the Supreme Ling Hall, accompanied by Princess Rukin, Emperor Wuhan, and a large number of palace maids. Dongfang Xia was in high spirit. His face was glowing as he sat in the chief seat. Outside the hall was North Wangzhou, who had just been delivered by Bei Xian's family. She was dressed in a splendid phoenix robe. It was luxurious and well-tailored, and it accentuated North Wangzhou's slender figure. A large red veil covered her delicate and beautiful face. She was only waiting for Su Yu to remove the veil when it was time to consummate their marriage. The auspicious hour has arrived. Let the ceremony begin. The bride and groom pay their respects to His Majesty. The two of them entered together. One was handsome and the other was exquisite. They looked like a perfect match made in heaven. The first prince, the second prince, the third prince, the fourth prince, the fifth prince, and Princess Rukin all had different looks in their eyes. The first prince was the most embarrassed. He was obviously gnashing his teeth with hatred, but he had to pretend to be happy. He watched as the two of them walked past him, and came before Dongfang Xia. North Wangju offered him a cup of tea. Dongfang Xia accepted it with a smile. He pursed his lips and said, "Wangju, from today on, you are a member of the royal family. Here, this is the money for your tea." He took out a small bag. Under the cover of the red veil, North Wangju blushed. "Thank you, father." She took it, lowered her head, and glanced at it. Her expression changed. There were a total of 100 dark-colored god stones lying quietly on the ground. Top-grade divine stones. According to the exchange rate, it was 1,000,000 divine stones. The money for this tea was incomparably generous. Dongfang Xia was about to say something, but his gaze suddenly froze. He stared at the phoenix robe on North Wangju, and his eyes narrowed. "Your phoenix robe is interesting." Chapter 1845. The North Gazing Pearl was startled. She had a bad feeling about this. At that moment, the phoenix robe she was wearing suddenly burst into flames. The dragon and phoenix patterns embroidered on it emitted thick, dark yellow smoke amidst the flames. The North Gazing Pearl bore the brunt of the smoke and immediately inhaled it. A sense of nausea and pain began to spread from her throat to her body, quickly extinguishing her life force. Poison! Dongfang Xia was right in front of her, but he did not help her. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves and drew back the yellow smoke. The poisoned North Gazing Pearl immediately inhaled a large amount of smoke again. Her vision became blurry, and her remaining rationality told her that she was about to die. She was poisoned to death inexplicably. Bei Wangchen and North Gazing Ting, who were standing outside the tailing hall, discovered her situation and hurried over to rescue her. However, it was too late. Recalling Dongfang Xia's ruthless move, her heart turned cold. The royal family was ruthless, but Dongfang Xia was even more ruthless. Sighing, she closed her eyes in despair. However, the moment she closed her eyes, her soft waist was hugged by a strong arm. At the same time, the phoenix robe on her body was flung away. Immediately after, her body turned around, and she was hugged by a thick and firm chest. The chest was emitting waves of terrifying heat. Wisps of flames entered her skin through her pores and burned inside her body. "Ah!" The North Gazing Pearl groaned in pain and opened her eyes in a daze. Su Yu's handsome face had never appeared in front of her so closely before. He stared at the surroundings and said in a low voice, "Don't resist. I will burn the poison in your body with the real dragon divine fire. The process will be a little painful." Su Yu's whole body was wrapped in a mass of dark red flames. The yellow smoke that came close to him was immediately burned into nothingness. Su Yu could not be poisoned at all. At that moment, the North Gazing Pearl's heart thumped wildly. She had never felt such a throbbing in her heart. It was as if she had suddenly opened a door, or as if her perception of Su Yu had suddenly changed. He seemed to have become different. She looked at him in a trance, without blinking. Su Yu's eyes were sharp as he glanced around. The tailing hall was filled with yellow smoke. Ordinary people could not see through it at all. His eyes flashed as he activated his transparent eyes, only to find a chill in his heart. From the first prince to Princess Rukin, the moment the yellow poisonous fog appeared, they were protected by Dongfang Xia's unique divine art, unable to harm them at all. Only he and the North Gazing Pearl were forgotten by Dongfang Xia. Had he really forgotten? Or was this also a self-directed performance by Dongfang Xia to take the opportunity to get rid of Su Yu? Dongfang Xia was nowhere to be seen. At the end of the world, a powerful fluctuation came from the boundless sea. He was very powerful, so powerful that even a two-crown emperor couldn't get close. This was a battle between 3 crown emperors. Su Yu rolled up his sleeves, and the real dragon divine fire on the surface of his body ignited the whole Tai Ling Hall, burning away all the poisonous fog. He looked at the pale-faced Princess Rukan and nodded slightly. "It's good that you are fine." He then looked at the north-gazing pearl in his bosom. Wisps of gray air flowed out from his pores, gradually fading until there was nothing left. He made a grabbing motion and retrieved the true dragon divine flame. "Are you all right?" Bei Wangzhu's snow-white cheeks blushed. She lowered her head and hummed softly, looking as obedient and shy as a bride. After ascertaining that he was fine, Su Yu put him down. "Be careful, I'll go take a look." Su Yu was about to rush out. A heaven-sent opportunity! To think that a 3-crown emperor would cause trouble and entangle Dongfang Xia. If he didn't escape now, when would he? But just as he was about to escape, a cold black light suddenly attacked. The black light was silent and without any fluctuations, nor did it give off a sense of threat. In addition, it was extremely fast. Ordinary people might be caught off guard and be hit. But the thread of fate on Su Yu's chest suddenly shook, and a sense of danger arose. Without hesitation, he shot out countless space blades from his body, forming a wall in front of him. Creak! The black light swept past and was swallowed up by the space blade. However, a large area of the spatial blades turned pitch black. The familiar scene made Su Yu's heart skip a beat. When the second prince's troops tried to kill Empress Ziwei, one of them was shrouded in a black robe, and his every movement emitted a mysterious black shadow. Any living creature would be petrified at the slightest touch. Its power was exactly the same as the one before him. As expected of the 6th prince who has successfully condensed the law of space. Your reaction is extraordinarily fast. In the sky above the Supreme Ling Palace, a figure in a black robe laughed strangely. Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. A 2-crown emperor. This person was a 2-crown emperor. At the same time, the fluctuations of the duel between 2-crown emperors came from other places in the palace. It was the empire's 3 2-crown emperors fighting the invaders. Su Yu's heart suddenly sank, and he was extremely shocked. A 3-crown emperor, 4 2-crown emperors, and perhaps many single-crown emperors. What kind of force was this? How could it be so terrifying? They could be seen in the ruins of the Great Yu. That Saint Maiden Union must have sought refuge with them, right? Could it be that, as she said, he had unknowingly provoked an unimaginably powerful force? How could a small 2-crown emperor like me dare to be arrogant in front of the 6th prince? You have the record of fighting a 2-crown emperor alone. He had investigated Su Yu very clearly. Bei Wangchen, who was rushing over, had a fierce look in his eyes. How dare you attack my sister? Don't even think of leaving today. 9 palms returned to 1. The 9 swift and fierce palm prints merged into one and suddenly attacked. The black-robed man laughed disdainfully. I didn't even take you seriously when you were at your peak, let alone now. You don't even have a 2-crown emperor, and you still want to oppose me? He waved a black light casually, and the 9 palm prints were easily destroyed. The black light penetrated the palm prints and struck Bei Wangchen's chest. His body was petrified in an instant and he could not move. Immediately after, the black-robed man attacked him casually and killed him. However, a red light flashed around Bei Wangchen, and he was teleported away, appearing beside Su Yu. He patted Bei Wangchen's body forcefully, and the black light on the surface of his body dispersed. He said indifferently, "Protect Zhu the princess and the prince as they retreat. Leave this to me." Bei Wangchen smiled bitterly. A great enemy was in front of him, and he could only cover the escape of others? Nodding his head heavily, he said, "Be careful." As he spoke, He removed the simple divine technique cast on the princess and the prince, allowing them to move freely. "Follow me." Bei Wangchen smashed the wall of the Supreme Ling Palace with a palm, and escaped from the other side. Princess Rukan and the north-gazing Pearl stopped in their tracks, hesitating and unwilling to retreat. Bei Wangchen looked at Princess Rukan strangely. His younger sister could barely be considered half a princess of the sixth prince. It was understandable that she did not want to leave, but why was Princess Rukan joining in the fun? "Go quickly. If you stay here, he will not be able to focus on fighting the enemy." He dragged the two ladies forcefully, and they finally escaped through the collapsed gap. The black-robed man did not chase after them. He stared straight at Suyu and sneered. "I am here today for you. You ruined our plans, and you even killed our beloved disciple." "Beloved disciple? Who?" "Oh," Suyu said indifferently, and he clenched his fists lightly. It was a good opportunity to test the power of the first style of the Evil Dragon Bible, the Nirvana of the Evil Dragon. If he could hold on, he would test the Tianibao. If he could still hold on, he would try the Royal Dragon Sword. There had to be a style that suited him, right? However, a genius like you is extremely rare in our civilization. If you're willing to surrender, it's not that I can't let you live." The black-robed man's tone softened, as if he was ready to let him go. However, just as he finished speaking, his tone suddenly became fierce. "That is a dream." A large mass of black light suddenly shot out from behind him, condensing into a giant palm the size of the Tai Ling Palace, and slammed down with a loud bang. Clang! The Tai Ling Palace was shattered on the spot, leaving behind a pile of rubble. Suyu's aura quickly faded, and soon there was nothing left. The black-robed man looked a little disappointed. "It seems like the information was wrong. What did you mean by fighting a double-crowned divine warrior, and I could not even withstand one palm strike?" He turned to look at the other battlefields where the double-crowned divine warriors were fighting, and laughed sinisterly. "Dongfang Xia thinks he is clever, so why don't we fulfill his wish? Today we will wipe out the royal family of the Du Empire." Before leaving, he waved his large palm and swept away the rubble. "Humph, humph, I will bring your corpse back for the master to see." Unexpectedly, as soon as the rubble was swept away, a deafening roar shook his palm until it was numb. 1,000-foot-long fire dragon suddenly flew out from the rubble. A terrifying mighty force knocked his palm back, and even his body was shaken back. The black-robed man was startled and then surprised. "You are the sixth prince?" He stared in disbelief at the existence in front of him that was no different from a real dragon. Without a word, Suyu swiped with his dragon claw. The black-robed man immediately dodged, not daring to take it head-on. But he was still a step too late. His black robe was torn apart by the strong wind from the dragon claw. It revealed an old man who was as shriveled as a skeleton, his eyes flickering with black flames. In between his brows there was a strange character. Suyu recognized it. It was the language of the Dark Moon clan of the Dark Star civilization. The Dark Moon clan belonged to the middle third class of the 10,000 clans, and their individual combat abilities were abnormally strong. Compared to a naturally weak race like the human clan, there were very few who could defeat the Dark Moon clan at the same level. Someone from the Dark Star civilization. Suyu's eyes narrowed slightly. He had long felt that it was strange for the Dark Star civilization to send emissaries to the Du Empire. At this moment, the Dark Star civilization was at a crucial juncture in the fight for the Emperor Killing Sword. All the forces were fighting fiercely. But this batch of emissaries had chosen to stay in the Empire and not leave for a long time. To think that as the rulers and protectors of a 3-star civilization, they would attack the civilization under them. It's too late for you to know now. The skeletal old man's eyes flashed with flames. Suyu's dragon body immediately burned with pitch-black flames, petrifying his body. Unfortunately, Suyu had obtained the real dragon divine fire. With a gentle shake, the black flames on the surface of his body were swallowed by the real dragon divine fire. The skeletal old man was shocked. He had thought that only Su Yu's space blade was feared, and his innate talent, black light, could counter the space blade. Unexpectedly, other than that, Su Yu still had the strange ability to transform into a dragon. Chapter 1846. Anyone who was struck by the saber, even if it touched the skin a little, would be invaded by the vengeful spirit. Even if they didn't die, they would be crippled. Dark Moon Soul Blade. The skeletal old man's long blade slashed down, bringing with it a series of cries of resentful spirits, disturbing one's mind. Su Yu's gaze sharpened as he swept his dragon tail. Clang, however, when the bone saber struck the dragon's tail, a series of sparks burst out, but the saber did not manage to cut through the dragon's tail. How is this possible? The skeletal old man stared at the bone blade in front of him in disbelief. Even the Double Crown Emperor would be injured if he took one of his blade. The true dragon that the sixth prince had transformed into was actually so tough. What he didn't know was that the dragon race had always been known for their strong bodies. The evil dragon Saint Monarch lasted 5 to 6 days under the true dragon divine flame before his body was burned to ashes. The skeletal old man was shocked, and he immediately felt that the situation was troublesome. This child was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Finally, he gritted his teeth and took out a fist-sized bead. It was filled with countless vengeful spirits. He opened his mouth and bit down, crushing the bead. Then, he sucked in all the resentful souls. The black light in his eyes instantly grew 10 times stronger. "Brat, take another strike from me." This strike was more than 5 or 6 times stronger than the previous one. With the evil dragon's small success in Nirvana, it would most likely be cut in half. Real dragon divine fire. Su Yu opened his mouth abruptly and spat out a dark red flame. Ah! The bone blade immediately let out mournful howls of pain, and countless resentful souls were burned to ashes. The skeletal old man was shocked. "What kind of fire is this? Extinguish your fire." How powerful was the true dragon divine fire? Even though it couldn't compare to a true divine flame, it still wasn't something a dual crown emperor could endure. As the flames burned his body, the skeletal old man immediately roared in pain and hurriedly put out the fire. However, the flames were extremely difficult to extinguish, and even the power of the Great Desolation could do nothing about it. Seeing the raging flames enter his body, how could the skeletal old man still have the courage to continue fighting? Terrified, he fled toward his companions and shouted, "Tiger Moon Peak Master, save me!" Su Yu's eyes flickered coldly. Trying to escape? With a wave of his tail, he quickly caught up. The huge dragon claw slammed into the skeletal old man's body, causing him to fall to the ground. The skeletal old man crawled up and ran, but he was ruthlessly pressed to the ground by a dragon claw. A powerful true dragon divine flame rose from the dragon claw, roasting the skeletal old man until he screamed miserably. "Is that all you've got?" Su Yu tried using the evil dragon's nirvana and the real dragon divine flame. Ever since he came to the great beginning realm, his body had always been ordinary. He did not expect that after cultivating the evil dragon Bible, just the toughness of his body alone would allow him to contend against a double crown emperor. Combined with the true dragon divine fire, ordinary double crown emperors would be directly crushed. "Sixth Prince, please be merciful. I don't want to die," the skeletal old man begged. Su Yu's gaze was cold and indifferent. After going through such a long experience, he was naturally not a merciful person. "I'm sorry, I don't want to die." Would letting him go get his gratitude? If Su Yu really believed that, then he would have lived his life in vain. The dragon claw pressed down, and an even more intense flame surged over, completely turning the skeletal old man into a flaming man. With a deafening roar, his body was completely destroyed. A fist-sized soul turned into a stream of light and fled. Su Yu smiled indifferently, a crack appearing between his brows. Soul-devouring realm. Don't let me go. The voice stopped abruptly. Su Yu captured his soul and sealed it between his brows. He would find a safe place to digest it. He casually grabbed the space storage device that the old man had dropped and turned to leave. But two sharp auras, one in front and one behind, were heading in his direction. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He withdrew the evil dragon's nirvana and stood quietly in front of a pile of ashes. It was getting closer. It was a tiger-headed man in a black robe, chasing the gray-robed emperor playfully. The latter's body had been destroyed by true Lord Fire Dragon not long ago, and he had barely reassembled it not long ago. His cultivation had not yet recovered to its peak. Moreover, he was from the middle-class Dark Moon clan. How could he defeat him? A pitch-black wound the size of a bowl could be seen on his chest. It could not heal, and the wound was still spreading in all directions. Even without the tiger-headed emperor's pursuit, he would not be able to live for long. The gray-robed emperor looked down and saw Su Yu standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. He could not help but shout, "Sixth Prince, why haven't you escaped?" He had seen Bei Wangchen leading the princess and the princes to the west of the palace. How could he leave Su Yu behind? Without Bei Wangchen's protection, any single crowned emperor could take his life. Sixth Prince? The Skeleton Peak Master did not do his job well. He actually allowed you to escape here. Humph! The Tiger Moon Peak Master snorted, casually shooting a black light toward Su Yu. But Su Yu did not move an inch. He had no intention of dodging. The gray-robed emperor clenched his teeth and flew over. He grabbed Su Yu under his armpit and escaped. He said bitterly, "You can only follow me. But I cannot hold on for long. I am afraid I cannot protect you." Perhaps Dongfang Xia had many things that Su Yu despised, but he was right about one thing. The prosperity of the Diu Empire did not depend on the 9 cauldrons. It depended on him, the princes, and the loyal officials. The gray-robed emperor was undoubtedly such a loyal official. Even in death, he was still loyal to the royal family. When he was pretending to be the 6th prince, the gray-robed emperor had protected him many times. Sighing, he said, "This time, it is my turn to protect you." A layer of red dragon scales appeared on his arms. His body was surrounded by the law of giant strength. He pulled his arms back, barely pulling 3 inches away. His current body was strong, comparable to a double-crowned emperor. But he could only pull 3 inches away. But it was enough. In the past, he could kill a single crowned emperor with 1 inch. Now, 3 inches, the arrow was knocked on the bow, aimed at the Tiger Moon Peak Master who was hot on his heels. He was laughing coldly when he suddenly realized something. His hair stood on end. He immediately stopped in his tracks and stared at the exaggerated giant bow in horror. A strong sense of life and death enveloped his heart. His years of battle instinct made him react decisively. Without a second word, he turned and fled immediately. But Su Yu had already loosened the bowstring. With a strong whooshing sound, the arrow flew out. In the past, it would leave a black shadow in the air. But this time, it did not even leave a shadow. The Tiger Moon Peak Master's head was immediately penetrated by the arrow and exploded like a watermelon. At the same time, a small soul screamed and fled. Another crack appeared between Su Yu's brows. As it opened and closed, the soul was devoured. Witnessing this scene, the gray-robed emperor's scalp went numb. He was horrified. The Tiger Moon Peak Master, who had beaten him half to death, was killed with a single blow. Su Yu sucked the air and took away the Tiger Moon Peak Master's space storage device. "Let's go to the next place," he said calmly, as if he was giving an order. The gray-robed emperor nodded subconsciously. Oh, okay. The fluctuations of the double-crowned emperor's battle were extremely strong and easy to find. The emperor of the empire, who was struggling to hold on at the second place, was pleasantly surprised. "Grey Robe, which one did you kill?" Quick, come and lend me a hand. The gray-robed emperor's mouth twitched. He wanted to kill them, but did he have the ability to do so? Su Yu stood beside him. Without batting an eyelid, he pulled open the Tiani bow and shot an arrow. As expected, the double-crowned emperor from the Dark Moon clan was also killed with a single arrow. His soul wanted to escape, but it was caught by the gray-robed emperor and handed to Su Yu respectfully. Su Yu stuffed it between his brows and nodded. Next place. The emperor, who had escaped death, stared at Su Yu's back in fear. He whispered, "Gray robe, what's going on?" "The sixth prince." The gray-robed emperor smiled bitterly. "Don't ask too much, just follow him. Let's see what it means to kill a double-crowned emperor like killing a dog." Killing a dog. The emperor was not convinced, but he could not help but shudder as he recalled the scene of the emperor, who had suppressed him to the point of suffocation, dying with a single arrow. The two of them stood on the left and right as if they were servants. Those who did not know better would have thought that they were accompanying the emperor of the Diu Empire. The third place was also finished with a single arrow. The third emperor was also dumbfounded. His situation was even more dangerous, and his body was almost destroyed. In the end, he was killed by Su Yu's arrow before he could even react. Su Yu was very satisfied with the souls of the 4 double-crowned emperors from the Dark Moon clan. In this way, after devouring their souls, his own soul would skyrocket and reach an extremely high level. The final cultivation technique of the 6th stage of the heavens sun gazing at air would definitely appear. In addition, there were also the treasures of the 4 double-crowned emperors, which would surely be very shocking. Suddenly, a terrifying wave came from the end of the sky. Looking from afar, Dongfang Xia was fighting a black-robed man in the sky, his hair flying in anger. It could be seen that Dongfang Xia was at a disadvantage, while the black-robed man was very relaxed. "Haha, if you had trained for another 1,000 years, I might still be a little afraid of you. A newly advanced triple-crowned emperor is nothing in front of me." The black-robed man struck with his sharp claws. His 5 fingers were entwined with the chain of law, which shattered Dongfang Xia's shoulder. He roared in pain. His face was covered in blood, and his facial features looked extremely hideous. The moon-worshipping cult has really put in a lot of effort in order to seize the Diu Empire. You secretly funded my banished sister, and failed to seize the empire. Now you, the moon-worshipping cult, have come in person. Hearing this, Su Yu suddenly understood. In the past, when Xianhua Langjun broke into the palace and kidnapped the 3 empresses, Dongfang Xia and the 3 guardian emperors were all entangled by mysterious strong men. Their strength was extremely high, and they should be the double-crowned emperors. It was very likely that they were the 4 emperors that Su Yu had killed today. Dongfang Xia's plan was to catch all of them in one fell swoop. Dongfang Divine Lei was probably just a cover. What he really wanted to get rid of were the mysterious strong men who secretly supported Dongfang Divine Lei. However, they did not show up. Therefore, Dongfang Xia created another plan. He used the wedding of Su Yu and the North Gazing Pearl to deliberately lower the vigilance of the palace. This was why he insisted on marrying Su Yu and the North Gazing Pearl, and why he wanted to get married within 10 days. He wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only could he lure out the mastermind behind Dongfang Divine Lei, but he could also use them to get rid of Su Yu openly. After that, he would publish an obituary saying that the 6th prince had been sacrificed heroically. However, Dongfang Xia never dreamed that the one supporting Dongfang Divine Lei was not an ordinary force, but the moon-worshipping cult from the Dark Star civilization. What was even more unexpected was that the moon-worshipping cult had come in person. His strength was far above Dongfang Xia's. Chapter 1847. Recently, Su Yu had familiarized himself with the collections of various extraterrestrial civilizations and had gained a certain understanding of the Dark Star civilization. The main race of the Dark Star civilization was the Dark Moon race. They belonged to the middle third tier among the thousands of races in space. Their cultivation talent was great, especially when they were born with the dark moon divine light. The living beings and objects that were hit would usually become petrified, stiff, and other symptoms, and then they would be easily killed. Within the range of the Dark Star civilization's radiation, there were many civilizations under their jurisdiction. Among them, the 3-star civilizations were basically created by the Dark Moon race. There were very few other races. In history, there was once an incident where a 3-star civilization outside of their race was destroyed overnight. To be exact, he disappeared overnight and never appeared again. It was as if it had never existed. Although he did not know what exactly happened, there was a vague shadow of the Dark Moon race in the records. The moon-worshipping cult was one of the 10 great organizations of the Dark Star civilization. Although it was ranked at the bottom, it was extremely powerful. The sect master was a Triple Crown Emperor. There were 10 Double Crown Emperor elders, and there were more than 100 Single Crown Emperors. They occupied a region and recruited believers. Their influence was extremely extensive. For many years, they had been targeting the Diu Empire for some unknown reason. Looking at Dongfang Xia's wounded face and the fact that he was at a disadvantage, the 3 country-guarding emperors were extremely worried and anxious. However, it was useless for them to participate in the battle between the 3 crown emperors. Instead, they would affect Dongfang Xia. After Su Yu finished reading, he turned around expressionlessly and walked toward the 6th prince's mansion. "6th prince, where are you going?" the gray-robed sovereign exclaimed in surprise. He looked at the mysterious Tianyi Bao in his hand and said, "6th prince, please help his majesty." Save him? Was that even possible? Dongfang Xia had been scheming against Su Yu in every way. He could not wait for Su Yu to die in the Dark Star civilization's conspiracy. Would he save Dongfang Xia? Now that Dongfang Xia was suppressed and could not raise his head, it was the right way to escape. There is nothing I can do in a fight between the 3 crown divine warriors. Su Yu did not even turn his head. I will go and see how my sister and the others are doing. Without waiting for the 3 of them to ask him to stay, he immediately fled. At the same time, Dongfang Xia's Baihui sect leader landed on the ground. A 10 million zhang deep pit was dug out of the ground, and a large amount of underground energy veins were flowing in it. Haha, how sad. Even your son has abandoned you. Dongfang Xia, raise your hands and surrender. You are no match for me. The worshipping moon sect leader looked relaxed. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back and stared at Dongfang Xia, who was getting more and more injured. Dongfang Xia snorted coldly, turned around and fled into the earth vein. What's the point of doing useless things? You can't escape. The corners of Bai Yu's mouth curled up into a playful smile as he chased after him in a flash. Su Yu returned to the 6th prince's mansion and packed up his things. Right now, the imperial palace was in chaos. The eunuchs and palace maids were fleeing everywhere to avoid the Dark Moon race's pursuit. The gates of the imperial palace had long since fallen. This was the best time to escape from the imperial palace and leave through the borders of the imperial city. Just as he was about to rush out, a series of light shouts came from the princess's residence next door. It was Bei Wangchun. Creasing his brows, Su Yu had no choice but to fly to the sky above the princess mansion and look down. 4 moon-worshipping disciples with single crown emperors were besieging Bei Wangchun, the first prince, and the others. Bei Wangchun and the first prince were barely able to resist the joint attack of the 4 of them. But it was barely enough. The first prince's leg had been hit by a black light, and parts of it were petrified. Bei Wangchun was barely able to protect himself. Once he died, Princess Rukin and the other princes would be at the mercy of others. How troublesome! But because of his relationship with Princess Rukin, he naturally would not stand idly by. He pulled open the Tianyi Bao and shot an arrow casually. One of the moon-worshipping disciples with single crown emperors died tragically on the spot. Then, he shot another arrow. When the second disciple died, the remaining 2 disciples fled in terror. But they could not escape Su Yu's arrow and were shot to death. After resolving the crisis, Su Yu stood on the city wall and frowned. "Why are you still in the imperial palace?" Bei Wangchun shattered the black light with a palm strike. He said in a low voice, "The imperial palace is filled with the strong martial artists of the Dark Moon race. We had nowhere to escape to. We were forced here by a few emperors." Su Yu frowned slightly. "The imperial palace is dangerous. The fiefdom should be much safer. Why didn't you use the transportation portal used by the imperial family? Could it be that the place was destroyed too?" "No." Bei Wangchen's face was gloomy. "But when I sent a message to my father, I learned that he received an order from Dongfang Xia to seal the entrance and exit of the imperial city. It has been 8 days since then. The fiefdom has no extra power to protect us. If they stayed in the imperial palace, they could still make use of the various seals in the imperial palace. But if they returned to the fiefdom, their deaths would be hastened." "Sealed again? Or was it 7 or 8 days ago?" In other words, it was after the imperial edict of marriage was issued. Dongfang Xia was indeed scheming again. He wanted to use the same trick to capture all the moon-worshipping disciples lurking in the Dayu civilization. His unintentional action had put Su Yu in trouble again. How could he leave the empire if the borders were sealed? Su Yu nodded and glanced at Princess Rukan. "Be careful." As he spoke, he turned to leave. "Where are you going?" Bei Wangzhu asked. She was still wearing a bright red wedding gown. Su Yu was expressionless. Leaving the Diu Empire. There was no need to hide anything now. He looked at Bei Wangzhu. "I am not the real 6th prince, and Dongfang Xia will not allow me to live for long. So I reminded you that marrying me might be the worst decision you have ever made in your life." That day's warning had become a prophecy. The wedding was stopped midway, and she was almost poisoned to death. Even if she survived this, there was a high chance that she would not be able to marry in the future. The saddest thing was that she could have become a princess of the imperial family, but now she was nothing. What? Not the real 6th prince? Other than Bei Wangchun, who was shocked, the 1st prince, the 2nd prince, and the others were calm and unsurprised. Especially the 1st prince, who had a strange look in his eyes. Why were his brothers so willing to hand over the fate of the nation to him after he had seized it? It was because the 1st prince had said something to them. The identity of the 6th prince is fake. In the ruins of the Diu Empire, when the evil dragon lord triggered the seal in the body of the late emperor, everyone except Su Yu was unaffected. The evil dragon lord had bluntly pointed out that he was not of the bloodline of the Eastern royal family. Even though they had not noticed it due to the pain of the seal, their people had all heard it. Because of this, the 5 princes had joined forces and treated the 6th prince as an outsider who was plotting to usurp the throne. Princess Rukan was not surprised. She sighed silently. After revealing the truth, he really could not stay. A trace of sadness flashed across her heart. Bei Wangzhu was a little surprised, but not too surprised. She had suspected Su Yu's identity from the very beginning. Mingling with the corpse clan and seizing the dragon cauldron did not seem like something a prince of the greater empire would do. She stared at Su Yu with a burning gaze. "I do not regret it." "What?" Su Yu was startled. The north-gazing pearl broke into a smile. "Choosing you is my greatest fortune." When she was poisoned, Su Yu had saved her. At that moment, she felt her heart beating wildly for the first time. She understood that that was true love. "But I cannot give you a future, just as I said." Su Yu sighed silently. He had offended another girl for no reason. "I will not go with you." Strangely, Bei Wangzhu smiled faintly. Her smile was a little lonely and envious. "I know that if you want to find them, you can't take me with you." Su Yu was silent. "Didn't you want to ask where they went?" "Let me tell you." Bei Wangzhu said bitterly. "The Pearl Corpse King went to the Sinful Lady Palace. The beautiful woman named Xia Jingyu and Shunga went to the Divine Lady clan. You are looking for them, and they are looking for you. Well, they mistakenly thought that you had died at the hands of the sinful Lady Palace. Su Yu's pupils shrank, and a rare look of joy appeared on his face. It was a joy that came from the bottom of his heart. Xia Jingyu and Shunga were not dead? But why were they with Zhuji? They must have been imprisoned by Zhuji before. She released them after you died. She wanted to have one more person in this world who would remember you. I am one of them. Bei Wangzhu suddenly felt that the curse was not necessarily a misfortune. Without batting an eyelid, she swiped her finger across the storage ring and crushed the divine herb that could dispel the curse into nothingness. Zhuji. Suyu murmured with mixed feelings. He had thought that Zhuji was just acting on a whim, but after his death, she sought revenge on the sinful Lady Palace like a moth flying into a flame. She said that if she dies and comes back to life one day, she would like us, who remember you, to tell her that she loved a man called Su Yu in her previous life. The north-gazing Pearl hated Zhuji to the core, but when she repeated her words at this moment, she felt sad and touched. In the face of love, Zhuji regarded herself as lowly as a speck of dust. As she said, she only wanted to be a vine that reached the sky. She did not ask for the big tree to look her in the eye, but only to grow together with it. Even if she had to endure wind, frost, rain, and thunder, she did not regret it. She was willing to endure it. If she is still alive, please don't let her wait for her next life. After saying that, Bei Wangzhu slowly closed her eyes, and tears streamed down the corners of her eyes. Compared to Zhuji, she did not dare to mention her so-called love at all. It was too pale. I will find her. Su Yu's heart sank. He cupped his fists and bowed deeply. Thank you for telling me. I will leave now. After saying that, he turned around and left. He chose a slightly secluded place and slashed out a large hole with his sword, revealing the earth veins under the palace. Without saying a word, he went into it immediately. Then, he came to the ancient Fuyao formation with ease. He slapped the wall with his palm, and a large number of deep veins appeared immediately. Perhaps Dongfang Xian never dreamed that I would have a copy of the star stone and star map. His palm changed shape and a golden box appeared. When he was looking for Huan Yu Longjuan's cavern, he found 3 things in a secret mechanism. The Tianyi Bao, the Fu Luo earth core in a silver box, and a mysterious object in a golden box. A black stone, and a scroll covered with dots and lines. He did not know what the latter was until Huan Mei personally demonstrated its use. It was the star stone and star map.